they can be ready to go.
Please salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and
justice for all.
Excuse me, could we come to order? Could any persons wishing to address City Council on any item on today's agenda comes forward and do so at this time? Other than the public hearing.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Howard in the second district. I'd like to talk on Council microphone. The mayor, initiative by Mayor Butch, recommended staff be provided direction to take the proposed measure related to the administration of the residential sound installation program, recommended receive and file a report and provide direction to staff. I think that's fantastic, but what's of interest to me is the mayor, it looks like we have an approval letter with the Los Angeles World's Airport. And my question, I think it's a great deal. I think it's great that the mayor was instrumental in getting this letter approved, but do we have the council to negotiate, or has the council had the right to give the mayor the right exclusively? And the reason I ask this question is because we have a council who makes decisions, or has the council, and this is a question, has the council given the mayor the decision to negotiate independent of any input from the council? And that's just a question. I think it's a great idea, but I think if we have a council who's going to make the decision, I think the council should have an input in any decision being made. Thank you.
Excuse me, Mayor, I rise to a point of order. I'm looking at a copy of an agenda with today's date on it, and there is no council initiatives listed at all.
Yes, Dunlap, Councilmember Dunlap, I believe you're looking at the incorrect staff report, the one that was given to you.
No, I'm looking at an agenda.
That may have been previous one. It was amended after that.
I'm sorry?
It was corrected after that. There was an error on the original one, so a new agenda was sent out.
This agenda?
Yes, and a new one was sent out. No, this here. It's on there.
Well, this was available on Monday, it's my understanding.
It went out on Saturday.
Sorry, not Thursday.
The Thursday. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm just saying that this was picked up on Monday.
Yeah.
And there is
I'm not sure where they picked that up from.
no council initiatives listed at all. I just want to bring that to your attention because...
where was it picked up from, Councilmember? Because...
This document was provided to the public in the city clerk's office, and the item had been removed, and then it was stated, yes, it was rumored that it had been removed, and sure enough, it had been removed from the agenda. This agenda was in the city clerk's office yesterday. Today is Tuesday, and that time was approximately 2:30. And so this agenda was at the city clerk's office. Now Thursday, we all received our agendas, and the initiative is clearly stated here.
Right.
And this is the initiative that was
Right.
in all of our packages. But yesterday, a new agenda was issued after it was rumored that it had been removed.
That's
well,
not a
rumored,
new
it was
agenda.
stated that it had been removed.
That's not a new agenda. Maybe the city clerk can speak to this. That is the...
But this was in the office Monday, because
Yeah.
I assure you, many of the people who were going to be here today were told that there is not going to be a meeting today. This item was not going to be on the agenda today.
I'm not sure about that.
And so many of them would be here. Well, here's the agenda, sir.
Well, the bottom line is we submit staff, we did the agenda and sent it out and posted it on Thursday night, and it does have the councilmember initiative in it.
Well-
I'm not sure how that one got.
Sir, understand the timeline, Mr. Fields. Thursday, the item was listed on the agenda. It is in all of our agenda packets. Residents then were informed that it was no longer on the agenda. This agenda was in the city clerk's office yesterday, as late as 3 o'clock, and there is no mention of the initiative. So many of the people who contacted my office were told that the item had been removed. They are not here to address the issue.
It could just be a matter of the fact that those are some old agendas that were left in the city clerk's office that hadn't been removed, but I can tell you that it was posted with the mayor's initiative on it on Thursday night.
Was it on the web, Mr. City Manager?
Yes, it was.
All right, is it posted in the library?
Yes, it was.
All right. Madam City Clerk?
Well, actually, one further
Point of-
question, if I may.
Yes.
And that is that I was actually handed a document just prior to the, this is just a matter of protocol. I was handed a document just before the closed session, about 1:45, and it does have a council initiative by the mayor, but it's actually, it has a letter of agreement on it, and that was not on the agenda that I had. Now, I actually had heard that the item was pulled, which is actually why I went down to the city clerk's office, and I was told it was an error, that it was still on, that it was never been pulled. That's
It's
what I
not
found out.
pulled, yeah.
No, correct, that's what I found out, because I'd heard that it had been, I went down to check. But now I am looking at an agenda that it's not on, I mean, one of our agendas, and it's not on it, so I can see where people may have been confused at some point in time. But with regard to me, I'm given a supplemental agenda just before the meeting, and it's completely different. It actually has an item on there for the council to be voting on that was not on the agenda up until 1:45 today. So I have a concern with regard to that, because we do have a council initiative policy that was adopted by this council. And like I say, I'm not discussing the content at this point in time. I'm just discussing the protocol and our process and procedure. If we have a council initiative policy, one would think that we should be complying with that council initiative policy that was voted on and adopted by the majority. And it says the documents have to be in your office 4 days in advance. Well, you couldn't have got it 4 days in advance when I got it at 1:45 today. Plus, it's completely different language.
Thank you. Councilman Morales?
I just have one question to the city attorney. The council initiative that's on there, has it fulfilled all the requirements necessary for us to take action today?
Yes, it has, but let me address the councilwoman's
Okay.
point regarding the fact that you passed a council initiative policy indicating initiative should be, I guess, in the city manager's office 4 days, prior to 4 days prior to the council meeting. And I guess the question was the attachment which is outlined regarding the letter agreement basically couldn't have arrived until Saturday because it was not available on Thursday. You do have a policy, however, this body has the inherent ability to by vote to accept this item even though it's a deviation from policy. So I would suggest that if you want to hear this matter, you just basically, because of the special nature of this agreement and what it stands for and its, I guess, importance to the city, that you take a vote to deviate from the policy to accept this matter.
Or based on the attachment?
Yes.
All right. So we'll deal with that when we get to the item. Thank you. Comment, Councilman Franklin?
Just following with the city attorney's comments, particularly when it comes to the council initiatives. I did receive the council initiative in my office late Thursday evening. The only exception was, as I read the document, it said attached was a letter. Letter was excluded, and I since talked to the attorney and discovered why it was excluded, because it wasn't included, because it hadn't been executed. And so it was executed on Saturday, and so they made it readily available for us as soon as they received it today. So that's the item and the process is proper. What still requires for us to take action is what we're going to do today is just receive and file it and then give staff direction for us to then ultimately vote on it for what we want to get completed. So I'm ready.
And my only comment is going to be, I've never seen so much debate on accepting tens of millions of dollars for the city.
It's not about that.
I'm speaking. So anyway, do we have any further public comment?
Well, Mayor, would you please make sure that the public has access to the documents that, and also I want to, with regard to this initiative, the initiative was just changed today. It wasn't Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or Monday. We were given a completely changed language just today, 15 minutes before the meeting started. It's completely different language. It's not about the agreement that wasn't attached on Friday. It's about changed language. And Mayor, I do believe you need to make copies of the letter available to every one of the members of the public who are here, and also with regard to the new language, so that how can anybody speak to it if they can't see it and read it?
Mr. Agee, we have a representative from Congresswoman Waters' office here. Blanca, could you come forward? Let this young lady speak for one moment. I'm sorry, I didn't see you standing there.
Business before pleasure.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. Thank you for affording Congressman Waters' office this opportunity to make a special announcement. As we all know, March is Women's History Month, and in honor of Women's History Month, the Congresswoman next Tuesday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. is going to be hosting a small business expo for all women-owned businesses throughout the 43rd Congressional District. And I'm just going to go ahead and read from an announcement that I'll also place copies of right outside. It's a small business expo in honor of Women's History Month, and again, it'll be next Tuesday, March 26th from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m., and it'll be held at the Lawndale Community Center in the main event room, and that's the community center that's located right across the street from Lawndale City Hall, and that's at 1400 Buren Avenue. It's 1 block west of Hawthorne Boulevard on 147th Street. And just to note a few of the participants for next Tuesday's expo, we'll have representatives from the Small Business Administration, the Department of Labor to talk about the Affordable Care Act and how that affects small business owners and all the new information that's coming out that's now coming into effect for us here in California and throughout the rest of the nation. We'll also have the Department of Commerce that will discuss their different services that they offer. Also from the California Center for International Trade, the LA Economic Development Corporation, the South Bay Environmental Services Center, General Service Administrations, all of our local chambers of commerce. Of course, Inglewood Chamber of Commerce will be there, as well as all of the chambers of commerce throughout the district. And we'll also have individuals that will talk about procurement opportunities. So this will not just be about these are what the government services that are offered, but they will also talk about how small business can compete for the different contracts that are available through federal government and also outside government agencies that will also be there. And the Congresswoman will, of course, be there and give remarks, and there'll also be an opportunity for some of the business owners to be able to have a few questions and answer sessions with the Congresswoman, and there'll also be tables there, so there'll be a host of information there that's going to be valuable to all women-owned business owners for the event this month. And we encourage all the small business owners and all women business owners in the 35th District, especially Inglewood, some here today, to attend next week's event. And if there's any questions, they can contact our office. There's an actual email address for individuals to RSVP because the space is limited, and also to contact our office as well with any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, before we proceed, regarding the fact that the language was changed in the council initiative, I'd like to point out that it was today that I advised you. I can't direct you to change the language of an initiative, but I recommended that you change the language of this initiative to reflect what I thought would be appropriate action for this council today, which was not to receive and file an item, but in fact to vote whether to approve or not to approve the item. That's why the actual language was put in writing, and I wanted members of the public to be able to physically have it, or they could see it in the agenda book So when we got to that item, when they spoke, they could speak to the actual approval or non-approval of the letter of agreement.
Thank you.
Is that on the table for the public? Is that information out there so they have an opportunity to see it?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Wow, we're all finished. Okay, I'm Wild Bill Widener, and we're going to have to deal with full moons tonight, or today, so I'd like to urge you to pass the DR1. That's something that, for instance, I've been waiting a long, long time for myself, and you know, I can go ahead and get ahead of the sound insulation too, and work together with it. And when you guys approve this stuff and make loans available for low-income seniors. And with that, that's enough out of me.
I have a situation here that I cannot understand. We come up to the mic now to talk about something, and y'all tell me y'all done changed the policy. Policy is a policeman's term. You can't just change things without notifying people that you are changing things. That's a police term. That's when you shoot a person and you're gonna lie about it. Just like I'm here today for one thing, to find out that y'all move the money where y'all can get it. Did you get it close enough, move right? Last time I was at the meeting, that was moving money from one housing to another housing. Now, I come in today about the airport. Before y'all, some of you came here, Mike Stevens and I used to go to the airport to meetings. Now, that sound installation, y'all ain't doing nothing about it. But now you're going to put a policy in, and I want my councilman to explain this to me. How can you change something from yesterday till the day? It's not hard to explain. Can I get an answer for that? No, you can't. You don't have an answer for it. Now, this is not the police department. You are council. You are elected people. Now, you know, I explained something to you when you was running. Because I don't like policemen. Not that they're going to do something to me. They'll lie to you. See, now I don't like that. Now, what we going to do about this number 4 before y'all move on down the line, okay?
Good evening, council members. As Standard Op shows us, we're going to do what, well, one person and his 2 best friends want done. Isn't it a shame that LAWA, who has gone about destroying hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, even multiple thousands of people's homes, now got a free pass to do what they want to? Because, well, I guess our fearless leader in his red cape is going to save the day. Isn't that it? Why is it that the residents, these 2 council members who, let me remind you, were elected, don't get a say? Wow, kind of like the union outbursts that didn't even make it to the tape because someone had them test out of experience. Isn't it interesting that in the olden days, even with Roosevelt Dorn and Ed Vincent, you got an accurate representation of what happened in this room? Now, with Mr. I don't care about Miranda, we don't get gavel to gavel. We get gavel minus what he doesn't want to hear and calls a recess, waves his hand, and it disappears. You want to know why there's so many cameras? You won't see them. These are going to go to people who actually care about the law. They're not on this coast. Whoa. Hope you like orange. Because you know what? The residents of this community need to be heard. They need to be respected. And that's something that seems to be lacking out of 3 of you.
Theola Gardner, District 1. I find it very confusing today that language, the English language, is being distorted in such a way that it's misunderstood. That shouldn't happen. We all know language, and it should not be used to confuse and make misstatements to distort a fact that is existing. And it appears that that is what has happened. Now, this sound insulation problem has existed for quite some time because it has been misstated, misused, and persons have come in and manipulated and used it. Political reasons, mostly political. But it started out as just a basic human rights. It was to help people in their homes, children, families. And it has been used as a ploy politically to manipulate and use the system. It needs to stop. Mike Stevens, as I said before and again, he was a hero that I followed at least 10 years ago, or maybe more. That's why he's sitting there today, because community had confidence in him wanting to support community, and we followed him. He was our leader. And today he continues to be our hero. And I dislike seeing a program that he started for community being abused and misstated and improperly used.
My name is Willie A.G., and I live in the beautiful city of Inglewood, and welcome senior citizens. I want to congratulate the mayor on this CI1. This is something we've needed a long time ago, and I'm glad that you stepping up to the plate and going to get these houses insulated. I don't know if everybody in here knows how the city council works. You got 5 people up there. It takes 3 to pass an agenda item. If you can't get the 3 votes, then you're a loser. You're a loser. If you can't get 3 votes out of 5, you don't get what you want. And you should stop complaining about it. This come off of my computer Friday night. This right here.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Council. My name is Ethel Austin. I was at the mayor's meeting at Faithful Central. He had a nice meeting, and also he had the guy from the sound installation, Feldman, Mr. Feldman. He said that this is not going to be an easy task. I got it recorded, which you all will be getting the CD, all from the meeting. As he stated, we already know the $17 million, the books was not audited, so therefore they stole the money. They misplaced the money. The guy that was in charge of the noise installation resigned because he already know we going under. So I want you all to know the mayor wants to take control of this because he already knows there's no money here. The sound installation guy said he must order the books. I was there. So now, did you order these books that fast? From the time you held me in Saturday, did you order these books? And he told you, he stood there and he said to you, Mr. Butts, that it's going to be a hard task, that the government must know where that money is going. Without them knowing where that money is being distributed, they cannot get the job done. Now, if I'm lying, you tell me I'm lying, because I recorded everything that man said, Mr. Feldman. That's exactly what he said. So now you want to take control. You want full control. FBI just locked down the employees' credit union. Inglewood, under your task, under your watch. Now FBI moving in. You supposed to have this impact with FBI. What happened to the employees' credit union money? Did you tell everybody that? Did DeWanda Brown, our treasurer, let everybody know? Did you? No. So now you want to take full control of the sound installation, and your two little puppets is going to go along with you. They don't see that it's coming hard on them. They don't realize it. So let them keep coming at it. Judy Dunlap, Mike Stevens, do what you do for the people. You shall return. WP is no.
Aldine Sly, 1st District, Mayor, City Council, and staff. This seems to be like exercise in confusion. And I want to talk about the 1 o'clock closed session meeting. There were some seniors here when I arrived, and it specifically says on the agenda, public comments regarding closed session items only. Persons wishing to address the City Council on the closed session may do so at this time. And they were totally confused. They said, oh, no, 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 we're not allowed. And I understand that you left before the one person that was here could make comments on the closed session item. So this has happened last week, too, when Mrs. Gardner and I arrived. It was all done, said and done. And we had to sit around and wait for the 2 o'clock meeting. So what I'm saying is this is like an exercise in confusion. We don't know half of what's going on anyway. It's not transparent at all. And then to have more confusion added on top of that is so unfair to the community. Please, let's keep the community enlightened in what's going on. And I agree with what everyone else has said regarding the airport. Thank you.
Roy Fisher, the 1st District, I concur on what Mrs. Sly just said because I was here a couple of weeks ago. I stood here to wait to make a comment in a closed session and was not recognized as you all walked out. You know, I come here today to talk about what went on last Wednesday when you allowed tax dollars, and I say tax dollars, to be given away. You know, and so don't even.
Is this an agenda item?
It is an agenda item because it happens to do with finances, money that belongs to the city, and money that you gave away when you gave those 24 lots away for $2,000 a year, you know. And then you're going to allow those people to buy those same lots for $6 million in 7 years. That is a giveaway. That is taking money from the residents of this city. That is not allowing any other business to have opportunity to buy those properties as they should have been announced, and people had a right to come in and invest in this city. It was wrong. It was wrong for them to do it. You do it because you think you can get away with it. It's just like that $18 million that you gave to MSG to come in here. Now, I don't know if redevelopment, if the state is even going to allow you to give that money away. But you them are putting this city in dire jeopardy by your lousy votes to give money away on the contention that just maybe it'll be something good for this city. And more than that, as they lay gravel over that for parking, they haven't even started. They don't even know if they're going to be able to use all that additional space that you are giving away to them. And that's just what you're doing. You're selling this city out by the way you vote and the way you act. It's wrong, it's wrong, it's wrong. You screwed the city, and it's just one more time again, you got us.
Bless you. We'll close public comment. Item 1, CSA 1 and H1.
Move allow payment.
Second. Madam City Clerk.
Councilmember Stevens,
Aye.
Dunlap,
No.
Morales,
Aye.
Franklin,
Aye.
Mayor Butts.
Aye. Madam Clerk, what's the next scheduled matter?
The next scheduled matter is a public hearing to consider adopting a resolution to adopt a negative declaration and Inglewood Energy climate action.
Has notice of the hearing been given in the time, form, and manner as required by law, and do you have the affidavit on file?
Notice has been given and affidavit is on file.
Is the complete file of the Planning Commission present?
Yes.
Have any communications been received on the matter?
Oh, no communications have been received.
Mr. City Administrator, is there a staff report on the matter?
Yes, Ms. Linda Tatum, our interim Economic and Community Development Director, will give the staff report.
Good afternoon, Mayor, members of the City Council. I'm really pleased to present to you the Energy Climate Action Plan that staff is working on in collaboration. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, council members. Our staff is really pleased to present to you the Energy Climate Action Plan for your consideration, and we are asking that you adopt a negative declaration prepared for this report, as well as a resolution approving this report. This document is the result of a collaborative effort between many of the city's departments, as well as the South Bay Environmental Services Center, and we are and a number of community organizations, residents, and stakeholders, and it resulted from a number of meetings. And we brought to you earlier this year an overview of the Environmental Climate Action Plan, so today's presentation will be really brief. And we would just like to indicate that we think that this document represents the city's substantial commitment to environmental stewardship. We feel that we're getting ahead of the curve in terms of state law, which we think will ultimately require this, but we're getting ahead of that. And with that, I'd like to acknowledge that we're the first one in the entire South Bay area to adopt an energy climate action plan. A lot of other cities are working on this document, but we were the very first ones to get it completed and adopted with your action today. I'd like to introduce Mindy Wilcox, Senior Planner, and she'll give a very brief presentation on the content of the energy climate action plan.
Good afternoon. As you know, greenhouse gas emissions and climate change is a growing concern worldwide. And as a result, a number of initiatives have been adopted throughout the world and in California to curb greenhouse gas emissions. Climate change is expected to result in changes to our weather patterns and also indirectly result in impacts on public health in particular. And the state has implemented regulations, and they're relying on local jurisdictions in part to implement strategies that will reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And the ECAP provides a roadmap to do just that for the city. And in addition, as Ms. Tatum mentioned, an opportunity for tremendous environmental stewardship throughout the community. The ECAP is made up of 4 parts. The inventory assesses the amount of energy used and greenhouse gases emitted throughout the community. And our plan includes data on 2005, 2007, and 2010. The reduction target identifies an amount of emissions that we want to reduce by a certain point in time. And the reduction strategies are all the actions and programs that we'll implement to achieve that target or goal. And the implementation program, the last part, identifies an approximate time frame and relative cost for the different strategies for the implementation process. Now, just to touch on the inventory briefly, in general, over the past several years, we have seen electricity and natural gas use go down. This is in part due to incentives and rebates available, but likely also due to the state of the economy, which may have resulted in less commercial and industrial activity in recent years. And then on the emission side, transportation makes up the greatest portion of the city's emissions, with the emissions from energy used by our building stock as following up as the second biggest contributor to emissions. And as with energy, we've seen a decline in emissions over the past few years, with the exception of transportation, which has increased since 2005. So due to projected population growth and the eventual rebound of the economy, emissions and energy use are expected to increase, and therefore the ECAP establishes a short-term reduction target for 2020 and a long-term reduction goal for 2035. The ECAP includes a 15% reduction by 2020 and 32.5% reduction goal by 2035. And this target and goal are based on California legislation, which is aiming to reduce greenhouse gas emissions 80% by the year 2050. And if we're able to achieve the target and goal that we've included here, then that will put us on track to contributing to the statewide efforts. And a 15% reduction target is expected to be achievable by the city based on existing programs, and existing city and state programs. However, the 2035 goal is going to require a significant effort on part of the city and the community with the implementation of new programs, as well as new legislation that will likely be required at the state level regarding energy and vehicle emissions. And to work towards achieving this target and goal, the ECAP includes 6 strategies, the first of which is leading by example. And this is all the actions and programs that the city will implement for city operations themselves to reduce energy use and emissions. And the city is already implementing a number of programs, for example, conversion of the city's fleet to alternative fuels, upgrade of buildings with energy retrofits, and conversion of street lights, street signals to more efficient technology. The second strategy, increasing energy efficiency, relates to improving the efficiency of our building stock. As the city's building stock is generally older and was built before current building code energy requirements, energy consumed by buildings is a significant source of emissions in the city. So under this strategy, we'll be looking at various measures, including energy audits at the time a building is sold, establishment of a virtual green building center, and other budget-neutral incentives the city can offer to encourage energy-efficient upgrades, such as offering expedited plan check for projects that go above and beyond building code requirements in regards to efficiency. The third strategy, supporting renewable energy generation, we'll be looking at ways to encourage the construction of renewable energy systems throughout the city. And as an example, we'll be conducting an obstacle analysis to determine if there are any permitting hurdles to developing renewable energy systems, and also energy innovative financing opportunities for renewable energy systems. The strategy, improving transportation options, we'll be looking at actions that improve the efficiency of our roads and encourage alternative modes of transportation. So, for example, this strategy would include enhancing bike facilities in the city and streetscape improvements to make our sidewalks even more pedestrian friendly. The fifth strategy, reducing water consumption and waste, will look at ways to, as it states, reduce the amount of water consumed in the city and reduce the amount of trash going to landfills. So increasing the amount of drought-tolerant landscaping found throughout the city would be one strategy we'll be looking at. And the last strategy, adapting to the potential effects of climate change. This will include such measures as facilitating cool roofs, which you see here at Rogers Park on the left, increasing vegetation throughout the city, incorporation of more mixed use around transit stations, and developing a plan to respond to extreme weather events. And implementation of these strategies will take place from approximately 0 to 10 years for a long process. And some will be implemented immediately, but some will require additional analysis of the costs involved before they will be implemented. And the programs and strategies will be implemented by a variety of city departments. And in particular, staff will be focusing on budget-neutral opportunities and programs to achieve the target and goal of the ECAP. With that, that concludes staff's presentation. I'm available for any questions or comments you may have, and our consultant, Matt Burris from Ramey & Associates, is also available for any questions or comments you may have.
Thank you. Are there any persons present who wish to address the council on the matter?
Roy Fisher, the First District. As she just stated, there are certain things that you could do to reduce emissions immediately. I have a concern and a question with regard to parking of vehicles on Hollywood Park's west side of their parking lot at Prairie and Century. There are thousands of cars that are parked there that cause emissions throughout this city, and I don't know why those cars are parked there. Are we getting paid for those cars being there? Does anybody know anything about the reasons for those cars being parked there? Because it is not cars that are being parked there to go to their casinos. So it's emissions that are polluting this city, and if they want to do something immediately, maybe they can find out about that. Thank you.
Close public comment. Any council questions?
Comments, Mayor?
Comments, Councilman Franklin.
Yes, first of all, let me thank the staff for their due diligence and also for the South Bay Environmental Service Center working with you along with the South Bay City Council of Government. Thought it was interesting to read and identify that 80% of our home stocks have fell below the benchmark since 1980. These homes were built, so that there's energy efficiency that has to be reached out. Part of the goal, you've identified that there was actually 50 reduction measures that you selected, and that you'll be working on those over the next several years. I asked for you also to reach out to partner with the South Bay Environmental Service Center, who also embraces the various energy companies, such as Southern California Edison and Metropolitan West Basin, et cetera, to help provide additional energy efficient concepts. I do have a concern, though, that when you're saying that one of the things you were considering, and hopefully not to some degree, and that was some kind of a cost to residents or businesses building some kind of audit at the time of sale on the efficiency. I think we should come with a better suggestion than simply passing the same issue that we've had when we had the realtors here and we're talking about having a pass-through fee coming in, that we then have that same type of a pass-through fee for energy efficiency being sold from one home to one purchaser from the seller. And I also am glad to see that you're looking at not only short range, but long term. And by partnering with the different agencies you recently mentioned, I think it will in fact has already been proven to us to be effective and successful, including our Measure R money that we've currently been able to use for the LED lighting for the city lights. And also, Ms. Tatum and I are already talking to the South Bay Environmental Service Center as well as the South Bay City Council of Government on coming up with some form of energy efficiency vehicles being used by the residents as their second vehicle to be able to go from one location to the other within the city, which will also help us meet that threshold. So this is a great report, and I'm glad to see that we are on board. Even though there hasn't been a bona fide state regulations, we are already in the hopper to be able to meet those goals when and if it goes into effect. And thank you very much.
One of the ways that we impact greenhouse gases is to cut down the number of automobile trips, and that kind of goes in line with a statement that was made about the credit unions. In-house credit unions tend to cut down trips to the bank and to other financial institutions, but I want to correct some information that was put out. The credit union has no more connectivity with city operations than does Wells Fargo or Bank of America, in that some of our employees had money in it. A credit union is a totally separate entity from the city. It's not overseen or regulated by the city. They're overseen by the National Credit Union Administration, and there were some of their representatives that were here doing an audit, not the FBI, and they determined that our credit union needed to close. So that impacts us because our employees had money in an institution where we don't provide employees, nor do we provide oversight. The good news is that Connecticut Credit Union has offered to take over our accounts, and they have an office right across the street. And so what happens when a credit union closes, the National Credit Union Asset Management Assistance Center becomes responsible for the credit union, and then they work to get the money back to employees as quickly as possible. And it's our hope that they'll be returning employees' account monies as early as next week. So I wanted to clarify that information. It was erroneous. The FBI wasn't here, and it wasn't a city institution that was closed. It was a private entity. All right, thank you, Ms. Tatum.
Oh, I'd like to ask Ms. Tatum a couple questions, if I could. Ms. Tatum, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
This outstanding program, I would just like to ask you, would we be able to focus more on the residential building energy efficiency component of this as far as applying for grants for windows for our residents?
The benefit of the program being as comprehensive as it is it lists a broad variety of strategies, so any of the strategies that are listed in the document would be available to the city. However, staff is definitely of the opinion that any opportunity, that one of the benefits of the council adopting this document is that it enhances our competitiveness for any grant applications that might be available.
Which leads me to my second question. Do you need, in order for you to pursue windows, because I understand, and with the residential building energy efficiency component of this, a person would not necessarily need to live inside of a noise contour, but yet a triple pane window would in fact be energy efficient. Would you need additional staff in order to apply for these grants that are available?
It depends upon the grant. We're not aware today as we speak of any specific grants that provide funding for window replacement. However, one of our objectives was that once the council adopted this program to start looking for grant opportunities to implement it, and that would include sound insulation, not sound insulation, but window replacement or any of those other strategies that are listed in the document.
So in order to push that forward, you would need what from us? What direction would you need from us in addition to this?
Nothing other than the council's action on the document. That in and of itself would be the direction for us to start looking for funding sources to implement the document.
Okay, I look forward to working with you to establish that strategy that I will bring forward for council at a later date and time. Also, we have here solar rebate programs. Now, currently under the solar rebate program, the resident is reimbursed by way of the electricity that is sold to Southern California Edison.
That's correct. Edison is one potential rebate opportunity, and we believe that through grants there are some other incentives for the installation of solar, but for right now, that program is administered by Edison.
How many residents in the city of Inglewood have been able to participate in this at this point?
I'm not sure how many are participating in the rebate program, but we know that in the last year there have been, I'm sorry, let me say since this fiscal year, I think the number is about 15 to 20 permits that have been pulled for the use of solar panels.
So if a resident would like to participate in this program, would they contact your office or?
No, the city doesn't have any resources. They would need to contact Edison.
So if we would like to make it user-friendly, let's say, for the residents, is there anything that this body can do in order to make it where the resident does not have to pursue Southern California Edison to assist you so that you could serve the residents?
Just because of funding sources, that wouldn't be possible, but one of the implementation measures that we thought would be very appropriate and that council could potentially support was creating what we call a sustainability center here in City Hall that would be staffed potentially by city staff if funding is available, but also potentially using grant funds so that we could have a one-stop center, so anything related to energy savings, sustainability could be addressed by that staff person.
The only reason why I'm bringing the issue up in reference to us serving our residents is because a number of residents have applied for the gas company's assistance program for insulation of their doors. They even install brand new doors for the residences. Yet the residences are having very much time delay difficulty in contacting a gas company representative on the telephone. They ask you to begin calling at 7:30, and if you call at 7:31, the line is busy from 7:31 all the way through till 5. So I was just thinking I would like to work with you in hopes that we can develop a program that could be right here in-house for our residents so that they do not have to compete with all the other municipalities, Torrance, or down the beach, and all the other residences in these other municipalities, and we could just simply take a package to an entity such as Southern California Edison or the gas company and then have it implemented. Well, thank you, Mrs. Tatum.
There's no further comments. I move for adoption of the resolution.
Second. Madam City Clerk.
Councilmember Stevens.
Aye.
Dunlap.
Aye.
Morales.
Aye.
Franklin.
Aye.
Mayor Butts.
Aye. Consent calendar items 2, 3, 4, and 5.
So moved.
Second.
I'd like to pull item 2.
Madam City Clerk.
Which one are you doing?
2.
2.
3, 4, and 5.
Councilmember Stevens.
Aye.
Dunlap.
Aye.
Morales.
Aye.
Franklin.
Aye.
Mayor Butts.
Aye. Item 2.
Is approval of the minutes held February 5th, 2013.
So moved.
Second.
Comment?
Comment.
Yes, actually, item 2, with regard to the minutes, has in it, as do all of our minutes, the warrant register and payment of the bills, which this council votes to allow payment. I want to speak to that for a quick minute. I voted no on those particular, those warrants, and I voted no again this evening. There are no employee salaries on the warrant register, just for the public's information, as people ask. There's no employee salaries on there. However, we have many items that are on the warrant register that are there without any legal authority. Without legal authority. Oftentimes we pay in advance for services that have not yet been rendered. For governmental bodies such as the City of Inglewood, that's illegal under state law. Plus, there's, well, just too numerous to mention. The District Attorney's Office has in the past warned this council with regard to the items on the warrant register. There are numerous entries, as you may know, several $1 million often on a weekly register. So therefore, I want the public to understand why I vote no, because getting the backup documentation sometimes goes way beyond the meeting. These are provided on a Thursday. They're voted on a Tuesday. The documentation could come way beyond that date. So therefore, that is why I voted no on the warrant register on these particular minutes we're approving now, why I voted no on the ones earlier this evening. Once again, many of them are on there without any legal authority. Thank you.
Madam City Clerk.
Councilmember Stevens.
Aye.
Dunlap.
Aye.
Morales.
Aye.
Franklin.
Aye.
Mayor Butts.
Aye. DR1.
Staff report recommending approval of the policies and procedure manual that will be used for the implementation and management of the City of Inglewood Homeowners Rehabilitation Loan Program under the Home Investment Partnership Act program funded through the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development.
Move approval, staff report.
Second.
Mr. Pipkin.
Good afternoon, Mayor, City Council. I'm here this afternoon to speak about the policies and procedures for an upcoming homeowner rehabilitation loan program. And this program's been a long time coming, and we want to get these policies and procedures approved so that we can implement a program for primarily our seniors. Okay? Back in 2012, July, we approved home funds in the amount of $2.5 million with about $500,000 going for RSI code violations and $2 million going for standard health and safety improvements for homeowners. And I just wanted to go over a few things about the program. We're looking to loan to about $35,000 per home, up to $35,000, and we'll have a grant as well for lead rehabilitation work. And the reason we would have the grant for lead rehabilitation is because about 86% of the homes in the city were built before 1978, and so our likelihood of running into lead at no fault of the homeowner is just very high. So we wanted to make sure we're able to assist with that. Another item I wanted to speak about was just the number of homeowners we have in the city that are 65 and older. Okay. And that number is about 3,700 householders that are 65 plus. And of those, 1,400 have actually paid off their homes. And one of the things we wanted to have was, to offer these loans, because they're deferred loans, no interest, to our most worthy homeowners. So we want to have the homeowner owe no more than $35,000 on their home or less. Okay. Another thing is that we have a number of seniors 1,800 seniors that make under $20,000 per year, and we wanted to have the policy also help seniors that are in the 30% or lower income bracket, okay, because they're unlikely to qualify for a traditional loan. And the HUD guidelines this year for one person is $17,400, and so again, these are people under $20,000 who would qualify, and there's 1,800 of them according to census data, the self-census data. And then for a two-person household, that would be $19,990. And in addition to that, we have some separate policies that we want to bring up for RSI. Okay. And that is to assist people who have not necessarily problems with, how do I want to say this? It's structural problems. Like from our research, what we've seen is there's about 144 homes, single-family homes, that have some type of code violation, ranging from severe to minor. Some of those are conditional issues. So someone might have a leaky roof that's causing molding, something like that, versus someone who has an addition, an illegal addition to their home, or a garage conversion. So we want to assist the people who may just have a condition issue. And I know, Mr. Stevens, we spoke this week about a lady who has a permitted structure, but there's a condition issue to that structure. So we want to be able to give a loan deferred. You don't have to pay it until you change title or refinance for cash, to the homeowner, where they can make that correction, and then you can go into the program. Now, how that portion works would be up to RSI, but we would at least cure the problem needed to qualify for the program on a property standard level. Okay? And lastly, I wanted to speak about just the procedures. The procedures themselves are guided by HUD, United States Department of Housing and Urban Development. And I used a monitoring checklist to develop those procedures, because when HUD comes out to audit the program, they're going to be looking for specific things. So some of those are, of course, we're going to have to market the program. So you all do your due diligence. We'll put something in the paper. We'll also have something on the website. So we'll market that way. Then the person would have to be eligible through income. The person's property would have to be eligible, meaning it can't be too dilapidated where it would use up, too many funds and not be able to, and we wouldn't be able to assist more homeowners. And a lot of times that would be something like a foundation issue where, just crumbling, and it would just cost so much just to fix that portion of the home without even fixing plumbing or electrical or roofing. And that's based on past experience in, just looking at different homes and different issues. Cost reasonableness, making sure that we're not overspending. How much does it cost to do electrical work in a typical home in, LA County, that type of thing. So there's going to be a measure of, how much is the markup that we're getting from a contractor. Other things are, we'll have written agreements between the city and whomever our construction manager is, a written agreement between the contractor and the homeowner. So those are all things that are going to need to be, in place for the program. So that's all in our procedures guides. We're going to have the construction manager being the eyes and ears of the city. We'll monitor them. If we have to go out to the home for any issues, we'll, take care of those things. And then, of course, there's going to be a record keeping and monitoring plan. So every 3 months, we'll have a report from our construction manager on where we are in the process. And we can always brief you all on that through the city manager. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Council comments?
He didn't give a breakdown with regard to the RSI program as opposed to the other.
Could you expound on that?
Well, you didn't give the breakdown. There's X amount of dollars, you didn't give the breakdown.
Oh, it's going to be $500,000 that we're proposing to use for RSI to cure those, what we're calling minor code violations.
From those that are income eligible?
Yes, from those who are income eligible. Because these are HUD home funds, you always have to be income eligible. Oh, and the last thing that I didn't speak to was the value of the home. The value of the home cannot exceed presently. Down here. Well, it's $394,000. You can't exceed that value on your home after the rehab. Most homes right now in our current housing market are about $270,000 to $280,000. So we're well below the typical median value for a home.
Thank you, Mr. Bibley.
Okay.
Madam City Clerk?
Oh, I'd just like to, Ms. Pipkin, I'd just like to say you've done an outstanding job with this. And just so that the residents know that this is our first step toward securing funding for those of you who do have who do have code violations related to your sound insulation program, but that the public should also know that this program can also be expanded to include those individuals outside of the noise contour. Am I not?
That's correct.
Is that correct?
It's a citywide program.
And so if you have, let's say, a situation with your roof, you can obtain assistance if you fall within the categories. Could we go over the age requirements once again?
62 and older.
62 and over. So if you're 62 and over, you qualify. You see?
And the income as well.
And the income as well. So these are things that you need to know. There are grant dollars available for you. And remember, the word grant means you do not have to pay it back, which is very important to remember. But in this particular situation, what will happen is that with these particular funds, what will happen is that a lien, per se, will be placed upon your property, a silent second, and you do not have to make a payment on the second at all. But in the event that the property is sold,
Yes.
then the lien is then forgiven by way of the sale of the property, or if you leave it to your children or whomever, they then will satisfy that debt at that time. But during the course of your lifespan, you do not have to make a payment.
And there's no interest on.
And there's no interest on it either. So something for everyone to remember, and something for everyone to remember that City of Inglewood, we have these funds available. It's just about making them available to you.
Okay. And one last thing about the funds, they would also become due if you refinance for cash.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yes.
so as long as you're just living your home as you've been living in your home,
Mm-hmm.
the loan will sit silent, like you said, silent loan, until there's some type of change in the property ownership.
That is correct.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Pipkin. Outstanding job, sir.
Thank you.
Actually, I have some questions or comments. Yeah, actually, I've learned from past experience that the council, when it comes before us, oftentimes need to tweak some of these programs. I don't see, for one thing, I don't see how we can provide priority to females over males. I can't imagine HUD permits us to do that, but yet you have that here. So I find that very concerning me, and so I think, I do believe that single seniors living in their own home should have priority. I'm just going to give what I believe. I'm also concerned, it says that we're only going to be able to take care of 35. That's what it says here, anticipated 35 homeowners. So therefore, I think we should be looking at, it says here we have over 1,400 homeowners that are 75 and older. So one would think we'd start with the older population who might be in more need for these kinds of funds before we go down to a younger population. So I would like the council to consider that, if not tonight, to revamp this program. Because remember, staff is just making suggestions to us regarding a wide criteria. So if we have 1,400 homeowners who are 75 or older, I think we should look to be taking care of them first before we go down to 62. Also, I believe with regard to the RSI, I don't know why we're using a much higher income level. It says 80% as opposed to 30. I think if you're going to do low income, it should be across the board. That's my considered opinion. It should be across the board with regard to the income. If you qualify for the rehab, it should be the same income level for the RSI, and it should all be deferred loan. I also believe that you said it was a grant for lead-based paint. It says here that the lead-based paint removal could cost as much as $20,000 per home. Well, many homeowners have fixed that problem themselves, just like other problems. And it said this money is to be for health and safety concerns mainly. So I would think all of these funds, to allow us to recycle them to other homeowners in the future when people pay them off by selling their homes and money goes back in the program, that it should all be deferred loan as opposed to any grants. Because the grants take money from the program, it doesn't give back, and it does not affect the person who's living in the home at the time. It doesn't. So we should get that money back. That would be my recommendation. And also that the, like I said, the income restrictions should be the same, whether it's RSI or just the deferred maintenance type for senior citizens. Let's see, what else do I have here? And like I said, it says here in the staff, only 35 homes. Well, if it's 35 homes, I think it should be people who live in the neighborhoods, or who we all know are 78, 80, 85, live by themselves, and they're the ones that have this work that needs to be done. They're the ones that are desperate. It's not about to be doing favors for people. It's about helping people who are really in need, and I think we should start with those people who are really in need. And generally speaking, that is a senior citizen who's living alone, male or female. So I think this giving priority to single, I don't even know how that can qualify for HUD. So, but I think we should give priority to single seniors living alone, and I personally believe it should be, we should start the program at the 75 and up, which is a category here that you present to us. And I think that the RSI should have the same income and age restrictions as the home refurbishing program, unless we don't have enough applicants for it. Then one can lower it down with regard to the RSI. And of course, that's only in the noise contour, where the others, as he mentioned, is citywide, throughout the whole city. So I would ask my colleagues to consider that. But like I said, there should be, I don't think there should be any grants in this program, because once again, it does not affect the person living in the home. It's all free to them. It's free. Whether it's a grant or deferred loan, it's free to them. They pay nothing. They just live in the home. They enjoy all the upgrades, the more healthful environment. And then when the house changes hands, either they sell it or it's passed on to someone else, then it gets paid. So it's grant or deferred. It's all free to the person who's living there. There's no increased cost. So once again, I know staff is making recommendations and suggestions, but it's up to this body to fine-tune the program as they believe it best is most fair to the most citizens citywide. And once again, I think we should start with the older seniors first, because they're the ones in my community, in my neighborhoods, who are living in homes that need new roofs, that need new plumbing, and because there's no one there to help them, and they're older. So that's what I would like to see as a recommendation, and I would hope my colleagues would consider joining in those remarks. Thank you.
Councilman Morales.
Thank you. Just briefly, and Councilwoman Dunlap kind of hit on one of the things I was going to ask about, which is the recycling of the program. And obviously, we're set up to obviously collect it and be notified when a property goes on for sale to do that. But going one step further, I guess in regards to obviously helping the senior citizens, that's our primary goal. It would be for all of us, I'm sure. But has there been any gauge and interest? Over the years, we've all been asked and pointed them kind of in your direction in terms of is any program in place during the last couple of years? I know that a few people even here had asked about that loan, because the home improvement loan is something that I think Inglewood Neighborhood Housing had at one point where they offered a second. And so we kept on getting questions. Now, was there any kind of records kept as to the homeowners who might have been interested in that?
We have 65 persons who initially answered, enough of the questions to be put on the list, and those were things like, are you a homeowner? You own the home, it's your primary residence. Are you 62 or older? And just cursory income questions.
When they get answered that questionnaire, are they given the criteria that you've set forth here?
Well, this list goes back a couple of years.
Yeah.
And so, in putting this together, I actually did do like a cursory look at the list, and some people have just to answer your question, no.
Okay.
Not the people that we spoke to on the phone. We just at least wanted to have a list and look and see how many people are interested. So we already have more people than.
I only asked that just because I wanted to know how we went about encouraging some of the folks that may be the most needy in terms of this, but you've answered that, so thank you.
Okay.
Just a couple comments. Let me follow up with the area of concern that was raised by my colleague concerning the eligibility as to age. Does HUD give us the guidelines that it's for 62 and older?
No, that was something that we've discussed over the years, because, we say, seniors have most likely lived here the longest. Their incomes are, they're a presumed need by HUD, senior citizens, meaning they're presumed to be lower income compared to, say 25 to 50 demographics.
Well, depending on their investments.
And of course.
Definitely their fixed income, as opposed to having the agility and flexibility to do additional work to help offset their income they've earned through their retirements and other investment they made. So that would be one issue of concern. The other one I want to raise has to do with the homeowner is not eligible if they have a trust. So expound on that if you would be. So if a husband and wife who are seniors that meet the age category, that meets the income level, but they've established their home and other equity in the form of a trust, why are they being barred?
Yeah. And that's something we had discussed because sometimes children are involved and there's not the people themselves don't own the home. It's owned, within an entity. It's not their personal property, like, Mr. John Doe. He no longer, it's the property of the trust, and then the children might be in there, or it might be willed to their nephew. And so it would be a little bit risky in getting funding back from the city, not really knowing who owns the home. And if there is some type of a change in ownership, someone could just write someone out of the trust because it's owned by the trust.
Okay, well, I understand your argument. I would like for that to be visited again, as my colleague mentioned about age category and whether you are single or married and you're male or female, that a trust merely also helps circumvent the item going in probate and to help expedite this for the survivors.
Yes.
And so I think there's something can be carved out that could incorporate that area of category. So I would like to do that. And then also the other challenge you're going to have, you already established a list, and Councilmember Dunlap has indicated about let's consider the age and income, but have the bracket at a higher age category, and clearly it's going to be a first come first serve that becomes eligible. So if we say that we adopt this today and it's 62 years and older, and you already have a list of some who may already exceed the 35 eligible, that they may have to be revisited if that becomes an issue. And then finally is the amount of income or funds you say you're going to need. Has that already been pre-identified, or is that anticipated to have the kind of funding that you referenced? The $318 million.
Oh, that was based on that was put in the staff report to understand the scaling of the possible need in our community. If all the homes in the city of Inglewood that are, from 1959 and earlier, if they all took advantage of the 35,000, we would need $318 million. We only have $2.5 million. And so that gets to, who should we serve? Given that we only have this small amount and this high need, how do we best serve the neediest among us? And, like I said, if we can always revisit this as a living, breathing document.
Okay.
It's not set in stone. The only things that are really hard and fast are the HUD requirements, on an annual basis, the income, and the HUD requirements on an annual basis as to the values of the homes. Other things are just things we've discussed in the past that, may or may not, once we get the program rolling, if, there's not a lot of interest for people 75 and older, then maybe we can bump it down. Maybe if we're any problems we see, we can amend the policy so that we can, make sure we're serving people who are interested in the program. If we're running into problems, we can always bring it back.
Sure.
And say, this is what we found. We need to amend this portion of the policy.
My final comment before my time is up is that the items that you suggested for consideration for the homeowner eligibility for the use of the funds is the basic necessity of living, whether it's the utility, electrical, roof, heating, and plumbing. I'm raised a concern about the RSI, residential sound insulation program, as being part of that essential as opposed to the basics. So, as you said, this is a living, breathing document, and we will adjust it accordingly. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. The question I have, though, is that if we were to make this like some hard and fast age rule other than 62 and older, then you would get a number of applications and you would be bound to take people that were the oldest. And the question I have is, but don't you look at a combination of the fact that they're retired and that they have an income need? Is that the matrix that you work from?
Well, the things that we would look at, you have to look at the homeowner themselves and their income. You have to look at the property and its condition. Mm-hmm. And, those are the two heavy ones. So based on those, we would
But see, that's what I want to ask you. So you could have someone who is older, made more money, but you could have someone, 62, 65, 66, that their home was in terrible condition. They're basically destitute. They make less money, and they have a greater need. But we'd arbitrarily be saying, well, but someone's older than you, and they're first come, first serve.
That's not what it
excuse
is.
me. I'm asking, could that happen if we just made it age the primary criteria?
That could happen. It could. Will it happen? You just wonder, because as a person gets older, their income's not necessarily going up, and so, there's some balance there. It could happen.
The point is there has to be some discretion. That's what I'm saying. I don't know that a hard and fast rule is going to make something more fair. Who makes these decisions in your shop?
As far as
you open up a process.
Mm-hmm.
You say we're accepting applications for these grants or deferred loans, and then what happens?
Okay. Well, basically, we're going to have our construction manager would go out to the community, offer the program. We'd have something in the newspaper. People would call in. We would enter all this information to an Excel spreadsheet. Mm-hmm. First come, first serve. Mm-hmm. And as people were deemed eligible, so you have to get in, your tax information or your W-2s to show us your income qualified. Someone has to go out to your home, do an inspection, make sure the property is qualified. So once those two things are done, we can then go into, making the loan docs, so we can put and doing the write-up, on the home and fixing the health and safety, plumbing, roofing, electrical, those types of things. So I hope I'm answering your question.
You're answering my question. The point I'm making is there's a matrix of indices that go into the decision. And at some point you gather all these things together, age, income, need, the condition of the property, and somebody makes a decision. Is that right?
That's correct.
Who makes that decision?
Well, it would be up to myself to make a decision,
Mm-hmm.
but then, of course, I would be working with the assistant city manager.
And so what you do is reviewed as well?
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Mayor, if I'd like to make a motion, if I may, I'd like to amend the motion. And that is that the income levels be consistent for both programs, that all funds be identified as deferred and interest-free, and that extremely low-income seniors, age 75 or higher, living alone in a single-family home, be given priority with regard to this project. Because that's the end of my motion. But once if we were to have it at 62, as soon as people sign up, you can't reject them from the program. If we have people, 62, you can't go back and say, well, now we're going to change the program, it's not working. So I would ask that we make some amendments to that.
Oh, and I just wanted to speak one issue about the priority for single females. The reason I put that in is because the majority of seniors are females. So I thought we would give them preference. But that's not, it's not just an arbitrary thing, but just based on census data, because they're more numerous in our community. But.
Okay, before we vote on the motion, there's a request for an amendment.
I have a question about the amendment.
All right.
If I can.
All right.
Okay, we're going to presently, the age, in order to qualify, a person must be 62 years of age, correct?
Based on past council discretion, you wanted to assist people 62 and older.
Okay. So if the age requirement is 62, I'm trying to understand, where does this come in that it almost sounds as if people who are 35 years old are going to be able to apply for the program?
No. It's only seniors.
So 60, the retirement age to qualify for Social Security is 60 years old, right? Is it correct?
62.
62? Okay, 62. Well, I haven't reached that age yet. So okay, so 62, and so I'm trying to, and what you would like to do is you would like to raise that age to what, Ms. Dunlap?
There's some criteria listed in the staff report that we have 1,400 seniors living in their own homes that are income qualified that are 75 years and over. I believe we should start there, and then after a certain period of time of outreach, if those seniors don't request those funds, even though we've done a lot of outreach, then we can begin to drop it down. If we start with the lower end, as soon as they apply, if that's our policy, they cannot be rejected. We can't move up once we've started. Once it's adopted here, then it's people who apply under the way it's adopted, they are eligible. You cannot make it more restrictive once someone has applied.
Well, no, my understanding is that we can amend the policy, can we not?
That's what we're doing.
I mean,
right
that's
now.
At a later date and time.
Well, I mean,
With another-
we can do some amendments, like, you know, anything that you all might want to see right now before the program even starts, and then say in 3 months, we say, you know, this is what we've done, or in 6 months, this is what we've done, this is what we come up with. Then we can
Here's
come
my
and
here's
revisit
my
it.
point. This is my point. I have people who are in this noise contour who are going to utilize these funds for residential sound insulation because they have code violations. They've lived in this city, some of them, for 30 years, and they have been waiting over 8 years, 9 years to receive their sound insulation. Some even longer than that because they have a quote unquote code violation. Now, to raise that, I just, Mr. City Attorney, how difficult would it in fact be for us at a later date and time to amend this policy and to what Ms. Dunlap is wishing to do?
Why don't you amend it to lower it?
Not difficult at all.
It's not difficult at all.
Okay.
I would just rather just allow it to remain the way that it is.
Well, but what we'll do is, we'll see if Mr. Franklin is going to accept the amendment.
I think I made the motion.
Oh, if Mr. Morales is going to accept the motion, and then that might be moot.
Correct?
Yeah.
Ms. Dunn?
Yes, you made
Yes.
the motion. Franklin
Vote on your
seconded.
No,
motion.
you know what, I'm completely fine with the age of 62. I feel that it appropriately includes the right group of folks that we're targeting, and if at a later date it needs to be changed, we'll do it at that time. But at this point, my motion stands.
Okay, so then it's a moot point, Mr. Stevens. Madam City Clerk?
Councilmember Stevens.
Just for clarity, Mayor said it's a moot point. Are we voting on the motion or are we voting on
On the
that?
motion, the original
We're voting on just
motion,
approval of the funds for
pass
this
it as
program
is.
the way it is.
to pass it the way it is.
So we're passing it the way that it is, correct?
That's
Okay,
correct.
very good. Aye.
Dunlap,
Aye.
Morales,
Aye.
Franklin,
Aye.
Mayor Butts.
Thank you, council.
City Manager is away ill. A1.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. There was a closed session held as to CS1 closed session, confidential, attorney-client privilege, potential litigation under Government Code Section 54956.9B1, claim of Kane, Balmer, and Berkman. Request a motion to approve payment of billings.
Second.
So moved.
Macomb City Clerk.
Council members Stevens. Aye. Dunlap.
Aye.
Franklin.
Aye.
Mayor Butts.
Aye.
There was a closed session held as to CS2, CSA4, and CSH4. Closed session confidential, attorney-client privilege, potential litigation under Government Code Section 54956.9, subsection C, rate order by Department of Finance for the remittance of low and moderate income housing fund. Discussions were held, however, no final action was taken. That concludes reports out of closed session for today, and I have no verbal reports, Mr. Mayor.
All right. City Clerk is absent. Excuse me, the City Treasurer is absent. Madam City Clerk, CC1.
Yes, I want to do two things, actually. I want to speak at the end, but I
Okay.
would like to just ask that you would close the meeting in memory of a dear friend of mine who passed away, and we grew up together as young kids, and he's also the son of Ray Charles and the brother of Ray Jr., and his name is David Robinson. Thank you.
CI1.
Monthly Treasurers Report for the month ending October 31st, 2012.
Second.
Well, it's just receive and file.
Receive and file. CI1.
CI1 is initiative by Mayor Budds recommending staff be provided direction to take the proposed measures related to the administration of the residential sound installation program.
Since the last 20 years, the city's received about $190 million in funds to sound insulate homes in Inglewood, but we've hit a roadblock in recent years, and that was due to a variety of causations. One was the changeover in our finance system, the computer system that we use to keep records. Another was the bifurcation of record keeping in both the finance department and in the RSI section. And then finally, because we had council intervention that increased the number of homes that went into the design phase 1 year, greater than the funds that were needed to complete construction. When I came into office, this is all that I heard about as I campaigned, and I promised people that we as a council would look into it. And one of the first things we did was have a consultant do an internal management and administrative audit of the program, and we discovered some of the things I just talked about. We most disturbingly learned that because of that year in which we placed so many homes into design and we did not construct them, we promised in our grant implementation plan that we would design so many homes and finish them. We didn't do that. Therefore, we couldn't turn in our audit, and we lost eligibility for a $9.2 million grant the following year, and for 3 years following that, to the point where we were $36.8 million behind, and we were running out of money. When I came in office, myself, Councilman Morales, Councilman Franklin went to Washington, met with various departments, one of them the FAA, and we received a $20 million grant despite our problems, with the commitment that we would look into our program, and that also we would look at parcels that were purchased with FAA money along Century Boulevard. Those were the parcels that were discussed a little earlier that we proposed to lease to Madison Square Garden with an option to buy. Any monies that are received from the sale of those properties go back to the FAA and can be recycled to our residential sound insulation program. There is no scenario in which that money would go to the general fund. Having assessed our problems, we hired another consultant, Sidney Allen from the city of Burbank, who ran their sound insulation program very successfully and very rapidly, and he came in and made some operational recommendations, and we got at least on track with the monies that we had to move forward. During this time, it's been over 18 months, I've met with the president of the Board of Airport Commissioners, the executive director, Deputy Executive Director Michael Feldman, who's in charge of the RSI program at LAWA, and we had their accountant people come in-house and spend as long as 2 months looking at our records, and they became comfortable that there had been no misappropriation, and so we moved forward with attempting to strike an agreement where we would have a performance-based program now, where they would give us access to monies that we had lost eligibility for, but goal-based. And I propose that we attempt to do 1,000 homes over the next 12 months and another 1,000 homes in the 12 months thereafter. They agreed to that with these stipulations that I agreed with, and actually one of them I suggested was that we have a program management firm that would take over our construction phase. And our RSI manager, one of our employees, he retired just recently. He won't be replaced. We also agreed that we would conduct an audit of the program from 2006 to present, and that we would agree to provide LAWA with quarterly reports on our program and its expenditures, and our agreement to align, where possible, program staffing with program productivity and performance. And that's a big phrase right there, because most we do is like 300 to 400 a year. I think we had 1 year where we did 500 to 600 homes, but our proposal is to do almost 100% more homes than we ever have done, because we are running up against the deadline in 2015 when the contours are going to be shrunken, and we need to really become more focused on providing this program to all of our residents. And then we also committed that we would adhere to FAA, LAWA, and State of California guidelines and restrictions as they pertain to noise mitigation. It's my belief that this is a good thing for the city. Now, I've heard a couple people ask, well, is the mayor negotiating by himself? No, actually, this is the process. I'm bringing something before the council. The council can approve or reject it. But this is not something that needed to wait 6 or 7 months while the council committed it, and we needed to get this money. Now, this deal, in effect, would give us authorization to more than the $36 million we've lost, in addition to immediately giving us access to our $9.2 million a year in LAWA grants that we're eligible for. And so that's my report. I'm asking that the council approve this agreement between myself and the executive director.
I so move, but Mr. City Attorney, did we have to make any changes before then? No? Okay.
I think the only question I think that was raised before we started the meeting is, was the council going to vote to deviate from its initiative policy to allow this matter to go forward this evening? So I think you might want to make the motion whether you're going to deviate from policy to allow this matter to go forward.
So should we
I
do
want to
that?
speak to the motion before any other motions.
So you should make that motion.
Well, I so move.
Second, on the deviation, correct?
On the
Wait.
deviation from,
Well,
because of the
actually,
letter.
with all due respect, I'd like to speak to the original motion before we consider the second motion.
Well, he says we have to do
But you've
the,
already spoken.
he says we have to do the motion first.
Mhm.
You hear him? He said we
Well,
have to
then
do
you
the
should have done
motion
it first. Well, then,
Okay,
with all
well,
due respect, I would like to
with all
speak
due
again.
respect, it's
Thank
done.
you.
Go right ahead.
Well, I wanted to speak on the original item before us, but I will speak on the council initiative policy. And that is that at the time this initiative policy was adopted by the majority, I stated on the record that it violated the rights of individual members. I don't have any problem with members of this body presenting council initiatives at the last minute to staff to put on the agenda. However, you did, Councilman Franklin did, Councilman Morales did, and now you're the first ones who want to violate it. So it doesn't make sense to me. You're the ones who adopted this policy, made it very, very restrictive, more restrictive than the state of California laws that were in place regarding putting items on the agenda. And for all what I'm going to say appears to be the wrong reasons. However, it's very curious to me that then you who wanted these very restrictive regulations are the first to violate it this evening and want to be exempted from it. I don't have a problem exempting you from it because I objected to it in the first place as being an unnecessary restriction upon the elected members of this legislative body. And I would hope that the council majority, the mayor, Councilman Franklin, and Councilman Morales, who imposed this highly restrictive and undemocratic policy on this body, would overturn it, reject it, and throw it out, and keep it as it was before, which is what apparently the mayor, that's what we're going to do. The mayor is presenting it kind of at the last minute. And there's nothing wrong with members of the body presenting things kind of at the last minute. Now, what I do object to is the fact that what's on the agenda is not what we're voting on. I'll speak to that, too. Like I say, I have no problem overturning this ridiculous policy that the council majority put into effect. But with regard to the actual initiative, even though members of the public got up because they really didn't understand the comments that were made earlier, what was on the agenda that was posted, what was posted on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday on the internet has a particular language about receiving and filing an agreement that was not in the packet. It said that it would be forthcoming. It said receive and file. In fact, if I look here at, it says receive and file the report, and then the second item was provide direction to staff. That's what's listed on the agenda that was posted. And yet, as I referenced, 15 minutes prior to the start of the meeting, I have a whole new agenda item. It says, approve letter of agreement with Los Angeles World Airports. That letter of agreement, which is what we're voting on, no one in the public saw it until hopefully just before the meeting. I'm assuming it was put out on the table. Well, that's a concern. And certainly we didn't see it until just now. So, and with regard to the comment about the particular item itself, whenever there's negotiations, which have taken place over many months, the council typically, this is a city council form of government. The city council would work with whoever that negotiator were to come up with the terms. That's not to say anyone up here would object to the terms that have been agreed upon, but never, never, never in the history of the city has one member of the council took it upon themselves to negotiate all by themselves, actually sign an agreement without any authorization from the city council. And we are a governmental body, and we need to operate by rule of law, and we have rules and regulations that we must follow. That protects the rights of the citizens of this community, period. I'm going to reiterate, not to say that the terms that are in here are objectionable to anyone, that we would all be in agreement with them, possibly, but the fact is there is a process and procedure. It would not have delayed anything for the mayor, who once he started these negotiations, to let the council know, and maybe he let some people know, but he didn't let the whole council know. I'm having these interactions, I'm going to have an agreement, what do you think about this? They're putting this on the table, how do you feel about it? That's what closed sessions are all about. That's what a city council form of government is all about. This city council as a body gives direction to the city manager, who operates the day-to-day operations of the city. All members of this body are equal in all regards, except for the mayor, chairs the meetings, signs our warrants, and signs contracts. We're all equal up here. No one is to just assume power and authority that they don't have, and I would hope that there are not two members of this council willing to just give all their power and authority away to one person when they have an obligation to the people who elected them. So that completes my remarks with regard to the ignoring the council policy currently in effect. Thank you.
I'd like to comment on the...
Councilman Stevens?
Yes, just the process itself. I have no problem with abandoning this policy, with the policy itself, of the initiative policy, which is the issue here today, which deals with the fact that the timeline that is ordinarily required to bring forward an initiative was not abided by. The procedure. Mr. Falco.
Yes, sir.
Would you just state for the public, ordinarily, what is the timeline for a council person to bring forward an initiative? What must they do? If a person wanted to have an initiative placed on the agenda for today, when would they have had to have submitted it to the city manager? And you are,
sorry, I
just
needed to
identify
switch
to the
seats.
people who you are.
Yes, my name is Michael Falco. I'm the Assistant City Manager. Mr. Fields stepped away and asked me to sit in for him. The policy as it currently stands asks that council initiatives be given to the City Manager at the time that we publish the agenda, which is typically the Thursday prior to the Tuesday meeting.
4 days in advance.
Yes, ma'am. 4 days includes, the 4 days is actually, would be Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and then Tuesday. The intent is of the 4 days is to place. The intent is to place the agenda. When we receive the information to post the agenda, we post it on the internet Thursday evening and distribute it Thursday evening to the members. That is where the 4 days comes from.
Well, maybe we need to direct this question to the city attorney. Mr. City Attorney, Mr. Sanders. Would you be nice enough to clarify what is the new initiative policy for a council person to bring forward an initiative?
Unfortunately, I don't have a copy of the policy before me, and it is my position regarding the city attorney's office. I do not review council people's initiatives.
Well, I was simply asking you the policy, sir. The policy.
As I said, without having the policy in front of me, I wouldn't know, so I usually do not rule or look at council initiatives at the time they're presented.
This was a policy question. So, Mr. Falco, your position is that a council member is allowed to bring forward an initiative. The agendas are prepared on Thursday. A council person can, in fact, bring forward an initiative on Thursday, the day that the agenda is being printed, and present it to the city manager for it to be inserted into the agenda.
Yes, sir. We typically go to print at no later than 12 noon on the day of agenda production, which is Thursday. If it were to come after that, it would require the city clerk to create a supplemental agenda, and it would require us to have a separate process, which is why that policy, I believe, was implemented.
Okay. Well, the policy for Mike Stevens has been that Mike Stevens needed to have his initiatives in 4 days prior to Thursday. So, just for the record, just so, and by the way, I have no problem with abandoning the old policy for the new one, and if you're telling me that this new policy is in fact the old one, I accept it graciously. But I just wanted to read to the public. Okay. On August 16, 2011, Councilmember Michael Stevens brought forward an initiative for comprehensive reform of the Inglewood Sound Installation Program. On August 28th, Councilmember Mike Stevens brought forward an initiative recommending that a full audit of the residential sound installation program be brought forward on August 28th of 2012. And on August 16th of 2011, Councilman Mike Stevens brought forward comprehensive reform of the Inglewood Sound Installation Program. Now, both of these initiatives were struck down. But what I would like for you to know is that it's been a long, bloody road, without a doubt. And people have lost their jobs. Ms. Deanna Wozniak, who worked for Wiley Labs, because it all started with a town hall meeting in June of 2011. And because she stood forward and told the residents the truth about our sound installation, was how we realized that we had not submitted our grant reports 3 years worth. People were actually just sitting on the shelf with design plans that were not being processed. We were in a quagmire in this city, and it had been that way for years. And the bottom line is that she, as well as her supervisor, they both lost their jobs as a result of the city of Inglewood writing a letter claiming that they improperly represented the facts, which we all now have come to know were all accurate, and then some. So those are my comments on the initiative, bringing it forward at this time, but the actual initiative, on the process of bringing the initiative forward. I have no problem with bringing your initiative forward, Mr. Mayor, but I would like to comment on it at a later time.
Mayor? I'm sorry, Mayor? I'll say, Mr. Cater brought me a copy of the council initiative agenda policy, and I would like to correct my statement. Under policy, paragraph 2, a council initiative must be received 4 working days in advance of the city council meeting in which the item is to appear on the agenda. Having a Tuesday meeting, the previous Monday, the day before, would be the first day. The prior Thursday, since we do not work on Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, would be the second day. The Wednesday would be the third day, and the prior Tuesday would be the fourth day. So if Mr. Stevens was referring to the Tuesday, which would be 1 calendar week prior to the agenda date, he would be correct, and I was mistaken.
All right. Councilman Franklin.
Thank you, Mr. Falco.
Yes,
Thank you, sir.
Councilman Franklin.
Yes, we're not up here to toot each other's horns and pat each other on the back. We're here to move forward.
Hey, folks.
In the city. It's just ridiculous. You know, we're talking about $27 million trying to get back that we don't have. And we said, and my colleagues should acknowledge this, whether they can do it public or not, we said, if you have an influence or contacts with LAWA, please do your best to help generate that kind of rapport we need to keep our programs intact. That's what we said. And the mayor said with his prior experience at the airport, he had that report. And we said, whatever references you have, whatever goals you think we can achieve to obtain that, please move forward. And so he has done that. To get on here and talk about, well, it didn't get this day or that day, and I've done this when I did this initiative, I did that initiative, that's water under the bridge. It's now. It's now. And it's now because the same item that I received on Thursday regarding the mayor's or council initiative, the content is the same, the recommendation is different. And the city attorney said that is not a problem, the content is the same, we just didn't have the letter dealing with the nuts and bolts, as they say, the devil's in the details. And so the letter is the caveat to where we can move forward. And I have to tell you, the tone of this letter is extremely harsh to the city of Inglewood, and we should be embarrassed. because they're telling us that we shouldn't get the 27 million or any money forward because we were too inept to handle this program that is federal and state regulated. And as a consequence, they're saying, however, because of you, Mayor, and our relationship we have, we're willing to give you a second chance. Because this council collectively made a decision to have a new city manager, we made a decision to have a chief financial officer, and we've also brought in someone from the outside who had knowledge and experience of the residential sound installation in Burbank. We're willing to give you one more try with a condition. And that's why I'm glad to see the acting city manager before us now, to see we need to make sure that staff will be able to honor these conditions that's in this letter, because there is no second chance. And so those conditions consist of, will we be able to achieve or complete the program for the, and I'll quote, bringing administrative overhead costs to be within acceptable rates and amounts by January 1, 2014. I'm asking that as the city manager. And the nod I take as affirmative yes.
Yes, sir.
I also like to get clarification that the program management firm that the LAWA said we agreed to have, which is CSDA, what is that? What is the acronym? What does that stand for? CSDA. I want that to, if you can get that later, put it on the record. I want to make sure that that's
Yes,
done.
sir.
In addition to that, it says that we have to get all the RSI programs audited from 2006 and moving forward, and that is to be completed by the year 2013. Can the staff get that done?
Yes, sir.
And then the other part is the city agrees to evaluate an efficiency and effectiveness of this current city staff managing and directing the RSI program by September 30th, 2013. Can we do that?
Yes, sir.
And then my final comment is that in this letter, and this is point blank stuff, it's not the mayor doing this, it is what Gina Marie Lindsay, who's the executive director of LAWA, said, this is the conditions. And the conditions that you will comply with all FAA grant requirements and assurances. It lists under section 5, page 3, A through E, and I want to make sure that all council members get a copy of those documents for future references. And on that note, Mayor, I personally want to thank you on behalf of the city residents of Inglewood, and particularly for the residents that fall underneath the flight path of District 4, to move forward to make sure that we do, in fact, get these monies reactivated, because it did say if you met these requirements, we will receive this funding if we could do that. If it's achieved, and that's why I got the city manager to identify it's attainable. And therefore, I thank all that was involved, including the city attorney. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman Morales?
Thank you. And Councilman Franklin, I want to thank you for doing a great job really in kind of setting the perspective as to clarifying what the perspective is to here today. You know, we spent too much time just going back and forth on that, but it wasn't too long ago. I don't know how many years the mayor described that first meeting at the FAA in Washington, D.C., which I was at. I believe I was the only other member there, in Artie Fields. And I won't forget when those folks came to us and basically it gave us the poorest grade I've ever heard for the city of Inglewood in terms of the noise mitigation program, and basically cut off all the finances from that point on to the future based on them not seeing any kind of product coming out of the city of Inglewood that was satisfactory to them, period, the end. And when we walked out of there, that's exactly when the conversation started, not only with the mayor, but with the city manager. We sat down, we figured out something has to be done. It has to get audited. We have to figure out what the problems are and how we get back on track. We've been keeping abreast, either through the mayor, those of us who have asked, with the city manager in terms of, hey, you know, what's going on? Are we getting back on track with that? You know, Councilman Franklin did a good job of saying that the mayor kind of used his influence that he had built up over his lifetime. That's the truth. We all here, part of our role is we all focus on something and we drive it. We drive it and we work with staff on a daily basis. If we have an issue brewing, we drive it, we build it, we work with staff to resolve it. That's what happens. That's what happens. The negotiations that took place, of course, there was conversations that had to take place to get us here. They had to take place. So that's what we're talking about here today. This is an easy part. To say, hey, we agreed to this. We should have been doing this for our noise mitigation program from the beginning. Councilman Franklin said we should be embarrassed. The truth is, this is stuff, it's a no-brainer, of course. Basically what they're saying is, hey, could you follow the rules? If you promise to follow the rules, we'll get you back on track. That's what this is. And that's what we're going to do here today. So the bottom line is, the mayor actually did a good job in bringing us back to the table with FAA and LAWA based on the folks that responded to him. Okay, that's just what happened. So I don't know which motion we need to vote on, Mayor, but we just need to go forward.
I want to speak first. First of all, as to the inference that somehow we're violating the council initiative policy. Oh. This initiative was turned into the city manager's office Monday evening. The fact of the matter is we didn't have an attachment. So the initiative was of last week. The initiative was turned in plenty early. We just didn't have an attachment. Now, missing attachment did not invalidate the initiative. So I'm going to vote for this motion just out of an abundance of caution, but the initiative was turned in on time. There are a lot of times when we agendize things and we don't have all the attachments. In fact, the agreement wasn't signed and presented to me, the final one, until this Saturday. So on Monday, it was made available. I can't believe we're having all this yammering about receiving access to between $35 and $50 million to insulate homes at a faster rate than we ever have. The fact of the matter is that when I came onto the council, went back to Washington to discuss the issue. Before Councilman Stevens was on the council, we talked about having an audit done of the program and having a management audit done. This has been, you get things done through maturity, diplomacy, and statesmanship. You don't just always have to make noise all the time. And I don't bring initiatives. I brought an initiative because there was something to be done. So that's why you see an initiative from me right now. But all of this, it wasn't on time, it was on time. This is just politics. This is just, this is too good, we don't want it to be good. I mean, I can't believe the comments that I've heard in criticism of what everyone said they wanted, but even better than we said we wanted, getting homes done faster than we've ever done before. So this is just more of that politics stuff. So Madam City Clerk?
So we're
voting on...
To deviate the motion.
We're voting to deviate from policy, but we're not deviating from policy.
Well, we must be. The city attorney said we needed to vote because we're deviating from policy, Mayor. And actually, no one has objected to the content of this agreement. Everyone has just spoken with regard to policy procedure. If the city attorney would not have asked us to vote because we're deviating from the policy, we wouldn't be doing it. It's not politics.
Well, I'm going to ask him to reconsider.
So we should...
I'm going to ask him, based on what I've said, that this initiative was turned in on time. And I'm saying this was
from the agenda.
That was at the direction of the city attorney.
It's different.
As I pointed out, I guess at the beginning of this meeting, I caused the problem. Okay. I am the one that directed.
Okay.
Or I can't direct the mayor, but I requested prior to the meeting that the mayor change the content appearing on the agenda, and I created this problem. So I apologize, but the mayor...
I understand. Okay, Madam City Clerk.
Okay, so we're voting on the way it was agendized.
That's right.
Okay, so can I get the motion again? Who? Butts and, okay, thank you.
Could you read it again, please, just for the
audience?
This is
just to deviate from the way the agenda was agendized, the recommendation.
From the City Council initiative policy.
That's not what no. Do you want to tell her?
I do this. Mr. City Attorney, please just give us the language that you feel is appropriate for what we've done. We changed the wording so that it would be clear that this was to be abundantly clear that we were voting on giving direction. So the motion is to change the agenda, or the motion is to change the staff report?
No, it was the agenda.
It's to change the agenda. The wording of the agenda as submitted on Thursday was changed today based on my recommendation, so it was technically a deviation from the policy caused by me.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Stevens.
Aye.
Dunlap.
Aye.
Morales.
Aye.
Franklin.
Aye.
Mayor Butts.
Aye.
And now we
I'll
are.
reaffirm my original motion.
And I second it.
Thank you.
I'd like to speak
Councilmember
to the motion.
Stevens.
Councilman Dunlap.
Yes, actually, prior to the meeting, I asked for a document that's actually referenced in this letter. I'm hoping it'll be forthcoming. And that is, there was a land use mitigation program performance audit, City of Inglewood residential sound installation prepared by LAWA, internal audit of October 2010. The public should be asking the question, why did not all members of the council receive copies of this audit? Because there are 3 findings that were identified that centered on the city's lack of historical record keeping and documentation, what had to do with city administration. So once again, the public should just be aware that we don't, well, not every member of the body has this audit, which was very critical of our program at the time. And also, I also want to know, with regard to this company we're supposed to contract with, CSDA, we don't even know who they are, and
Yes, we do.
we are approving to contract with them. And obviously, one is going to assume that when this contract comes before us, it'll be clearly defined as to who they are and their history and their record and so forth.
Okay.
Now I have a question. With regard to number 4, it says the city agrees to evaluate the efficiency and effectiveness of the current city staff managing and directing the RSI program to align program overhead costs with actual production rates. It's my understanding, and if my understanding is not correct, please speak, that 20% of program costs can be for administration of the program?
That's correct.
And as historically, or at least recently, at some point in time, it's reached as high as 60%?
There have been times for that where the administrative costs have exceeded 20% and have risen as high as 60%.
Yeah, that's a real serious matter for us, and that's somewhat recently. Now, with regard to the employees that may be relocated from RSI, I'm assuming if you're going to cut down costs, you're going to be relocating employees.
Well, actually, not necessarily, because the point of negotiation with LAWA on this one specifically is if productivity rises and we're able to start, doing the construction on 1,000 homes, then there will be enough, program income and benefit for the administration to satisfy the cost of the program on both sides, both construction
When will
and.
we be aware as to whether or not that becomes a reality for us?
Well, our goal is 1,000 units in 2013, so we will have a fairly good indication by the end of the summer, as to how close we are going to be to that number.
Okay. So with regard to the percentage of funding taking place like today, even though it may be higher as of today, we're allowed to sort of work into it through the end of the year?
That's correct.
Okay. If in case that doesn't occur, these employees will move into general fund positions because they all have civil service job protections.
We'll have to, look at that, because I'm sure that they will have, if the program won't support them, then we'll have to move them through either the bumping process or, other means to find other opportunities for them within the city.
And the public needs to understand that that's extremely critical, because it's our general fund is where we have the structural deficit, which is why employees are on furlough today and why we had layoffs a few years ago. And if any of these employees, based on the success of the program, are removed from that department because we're only permitted 20% towards administration, and as was referenced by our assistant city manager, it's been as high as 60% of the funding has gone to administration. These employees have the potential of being moved into, because they can't be laid off, they have civil service protections, bumping into general fund, which is going to increase our costs to the general fund, which would increase our structural deficit. So it's a problem that we hope we don't have to face if this program is successful, which we hope it is.
And let me just offer a little bit of a further explanation, is that they could bump into other special funded programs or departments as well. So it's not just the general fund that would have to support them. For example,
As long as it's something that they've either had prior experience or something of that
Correct.
nature. I only have
Correct.
a little bit of time. I'd like to
Okay, I'm
conclude by stating that I am greatly concerned that approximately a year and a half or 2 years ago, there were 2 employees from Wiley Laboratory who did speak at a town hall meeting telling the public the truth about our program being dysfunctional. Exactly what you're hearing here tonight officially. And those 2 employees were terminated because city administration sent a letter to their company and say, how dare these individuals who work for the city of Inglewood tell the public what's really going on. And they were fired after many years of service to the city with regard to the sound insulation program. And I think that should be an embarrassment to our city administration who took that action against those employees who all they did was speak the truth to residents who came to a meeting who wanted to learn about our program. And you're hearing tonight how completely dysfunctional that program was, all the money we lost, and now hopefully we'll be back on track doing the program as it should be. But we should never shoot the messenger when it comes to looking and evaluating our programs in the city of Inglewood. It's always in the residents' and taxpayers' best interest to know exactly what's going on, because it's all about you. Thank you.
Councilman Stevens?
Well, I would just like to say to the residents that I want them to clearly understand that we're only talking about 1,000 homes to be sound insulated. And to please remember, the squeaky wheel does get the grease. Mr. Esparza, I'd like to ask you a question.
Yes.
How many homes do we have that have not been completed in the process, roughly?
When you
Still-
say not been completed, completed what?
I'm saying that they have not been completed, inclusive of those individuals who are in stage 2, where they've been contacted with the letter from the city of Inglewood, straight through to those where right now people are contractors are bidding on them, as well as those individuals who have contractors in their homes installing the windows today. How many homes do we have at this point?
I think there's over 2,000.
Well, my estimate shows that it's 3,600. That's the figures that I was given through RSI.
Right. Okay.
So my point is that if, in fact, LAWA does not provide us with additional funding, there may very well be people who may not have their homes sound insulated, which lends us to this statement in the letter, which was given to me just before the meeting started. It states very clearly that, and this is LAWA's letter from Los Angeles Water Airports. The city agrees to engage at its own expense a qualified professional firm to conduct a full and comprehensive audit of its RSI, Residential Sound Installation Program, from 2006 onward, where the audit scope targets key RSI functions and expanded assessment may be necessary. Now, well, how is that relevant? Well, it's very relevant, because what we must understand is this, is that grant reports were not filed for 3 years. It means every year this city is supposed to identify where did they spend the money? Where did it go? Now, this is the issue for Los Angeles Water Airports. The only way, to my understanding, regardless of who knows who at Los Angeles Water Airports, is that we are going to have to account for where the money went before they will issue us additional money. This money is coming, Mr. Esparza. We are selling property on Century Boulevard, and rather we're leasing. Now, here you have to have the terminology exact. We're leasing property on Century Boulevard, and the total sale after 7 years, we're leasing it with an option to purchase it in 7 years. At the end of 7 years, do you have the appraised value of what that property is valued at?
No, I do not.
You do not. Okay. How much the funding for this component here? What is the dollar figure, Mr. Esparza? 15 million? Receiving a fiscal 2012 grant from Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, for $15 million?
Yeah, that was in December.
Okay, and this is the funding source this is the funding that we are going to be utilizing, correct?
It's part of the funding source. There's a total of almost $40 million that we will be using to do the sound installation this year.
Okay, and the balance of the what is that, 25 million, where will that be coming from?
That'll be other sources from, LAWA and the Federal Aviation Administration.
Okay, just so the public knows, is that when we sell the property on Century Boulevard, that money must be returned to Los Angeles World Airports because it was purchased when the city adopted a policy of only land acquisition in the city. For years, this city only acquired property. They never informed the residents that we would silence, that you actually were eligible to have your home sound insulated. I just want to conclude with this, is that, Mr. Mayor, I'm totally in support of this, but I just want the public to understand this, is that Los Angeles World Airports is not giving us anything. It is state mandated that they sound insulate, or rather make the adjoining property that surrounds the airport compatible with it, which then includes either a land acquisition or, in fact, sound insulation. And in doing so, I do not want the public to think that somehow LAX is giving us something, or that the executive director came here and he's giving us something. You deserve it. You are entitled to it. They should be thanking us, to tell you the truth, for all these years.
Thank you, Councilman Stevens. Councilman Franklin.
Well, let me just piggyback what my colleague said, because I have a different take. Those council members that was here when Mayor Dorn was with us was our point person that reached the settlement agreement that dictated what we could or could not do. And part of those agreements simply falls into the same criteria we're dealing with today, which said LAWA will honor the agreement subject to your willingness to comply with these regulations and guidelines. We have failed on regulating those guidelines, so therefore we breached the agreement that was reached with LAWA. Now, with the help of our new mayor, who has a positive relationship with LAWA, we've been able to mend the fence, subject to these criteria, and there's 5 of them. But item number 1 specifically says that once the city has completed item 1, LAWA will advise its audit and ethics committee of Inglewood's progress and release the unused funding previously approved by the Board of Airport Commissioners, subject to applicable laws. And that item is, the city agrees to contract with, this is not the mayor saying this is LAWA saying this, the city agrees to contract with CSDA, an architectural engineering consulting firm, to manage and direct the RSI program. The city will engage this firm with a scope of services designate designed to meet the city's and LAWA's goals and assist in resolving the current obstacles to the program's success. In addition, CDSA, in conjunction with the city, will create a blueprint for future noise mitigation work plan that will be acceptable to LAWA. In my final minutes, I reach out to the acting city manager. Mr. Falco, would you please share with us, I know that you have it now, the CSDA firm?
Yes, thank you, Councilman. The organization CSDA Design Group was founded in 1952 by 2 gentlemen, Bill Corlett and Peter Skayer. That is the C and the S, so it's Corlett Skayer. In 1975, Randy Devato joined the firm. He is currently the president. That is the D, so that is the CSD, and then the A is represented by the word architects. So it is actually Corlett Skayer Devato Architects Design Group.
Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
Mayor.
Thank you. Just the last thing, and then we'll vote. First of all, the councilman's incorrect when he says that if you violated a contractual agreement, that you're still entitled to what the other side said they'd do. We violated the agreement. We didn't turn in our audit reports. We lost eligibility for $9.2 million a year for every year that we didn't turn in that single audit report. And we couldn't turn in future ones because of that. So no, we had lost the money. I'm grateful that I was able to reach an arrangement with them that they did give us the money. I'm also grateful that we learned along the way that we can be more efficient And it was councils long ago that oversaw us loading up our RSI program with civil service city employees. This is a program that's supposed to go away one day. But as budgets got worse and worse, we loaded more and more employees into this program, and that's why our overhead became so high. And so the only way for us to flatten out that percentage of employee costs to construction is to do more homes. And that's why I sought an aggressive program that's going to do 1,000 homes. It's going to do two things. One, it's going to shrink our percentage of employee overhead. Two, it's going to get people's houses done faster. Now, you know, that's a lot of homes, 1,000 a year. That's as good as anyone in the country, and we should be happy about it. Now, we're talking about, we probably do have around 3,000 some homes left to do. We'll figure it out along the way. But I'll tell you what, we're a lot better off today than we were yesterday, or than we were before Saturday. And this is the result of a year and a half of negotiations, fixes, study, and this has nothing to do, I don't know who these people are that were fired. We don't run Wiley Labs. And so all this stuff about people getting fired, that's smoke and mirrors. I don't know anything about what they're talking about a letter that got someone fired. We don't tell people what to do with their employees. Madam City Clerk.
Council members Stevens.
Aye.
Dunlap.
Aye.
Morales.
Aye.
Franklin. Mayor Butts.
Aye. Public comments.
No, Mayor,
Oh.
we have to go into.
The successor agency?
Yes,
Call to order
we have
the
a
city-
couple of them, so we.
Call to order the City of Inglewood.
A quorum is present.
Item CSA 2.
Approval of the minutes held December 4th, January 15th, January 22nd, and 29th, February 5th, 2013.
Second.
Madam City Clerk.
Council, agency member Stevens.
Aye.
Dunlap.
Aye.
Morales.
Aye.
Franklin.
Aye.
Chairman Butts.
Aye. Adjourn the City of Inglewood successor agency.
CSA 3.
CSA 3, I'm sorry.
Monthly Treasurer's Report for the month ending October 31st, 2012.
Receive and file. Adjourn the successor agency. Call to order the Inglewood Housing Authority.
A quorum is present.
H2.
Approval of the minutes held January 15th, and 22nd, 2013. Oh, wait a
And February
minute.
5th.
Sorry, and February 5th.
Second.
Madam City Clerk.
Agency members, Stevens.
Aye.
Dunlap.
Aye.
Morales.
Aye.
Franklin.
Aye.
Chairman Butts.
Aye. H3.
Monthly Treasurer's Report for the month ending October 31st, 2012.
Receive and file. Adjourn the Inglewood Housing Authority. Any persons wishing to address...
We have one more.
You're kidding.
One more.
Oh.
Where's the, do we have
Call
one
to
more?
order the Inglewood Public Financing Authority.
Oh, a quorum is present.
F1.
Approval of the minutes held December 18th, 2012.
So moved. Second.
Madam City Clerk.
Agency members Stevens.
Aye.
Dunlap.
Aye.
Morales.
Aye.
Franklin.
Aye.
Chairman Butts.
Aye. F2.
Monthly Treasurer's Report for the month ending October 31st, 2012.
Receive and file. Adjourn the Public Financing Authority, and there are no more agencies.
No, a quorum is present.
Call to order the City Council. Any persons wishing to address the City Council on any matter connected with city business not elsewhere considered may do so at this time.
Good evening, council members and my fellow citizens of Inglewood. I have lived in this wonderful city for several years, and I would give it a bunch of congratulations and stuff for the things that you have done so far for the disabled, as far as the iShuttle and the other vans that run from the senior center and everything. My problem is, as a disabled person dependent on riding in this chair, I would like to be involved with ideas and helping out for more ramps on the sidewalks, because I recently got hit by a car in my chair. That wasn't the problem with the ramps, but people just don't pay attention to us who are sitting in these wheelchairs. But sometimes there's a ramp on a sidewalk, and then there's not one on the other end. I myself have had to be in the city, in the streets, to go from here to point A to point B and stuff, and I depend on this sharing stuff, and what I would like to do is see at one of the meetings or something, some of y'all to think about us, who depend on, who this is it for us, and us being able to move about our city. Like I said, I would like to be involved in suggestions. I have many. So if someone wants my phone number or whatever, that'll be fine. I would like to do that. One thing I wanted to say too, and there's rumors about what happened to the money for the new senior center. Some people say that it's been spent, or we don't have it, or so. What I would like, maybe at the next session, or if y'all come to the center and tell us the truth, because we've been told it was gone.
That's not true, ma'am.
Well, this is what someone came, Judy Dunlap, came to our city. Not Judy, I'm sorry.
No, thank you, please, I did not.
What's her name? Thank you. Came to tell us that
Who was
it's
it
gone.
that told you? Who was it that told you?
Okay,
I'm sorry?
Councilman
Who was the person that told you?
Councilman Stevens.
Jean, who is it? Jean Davis. She came
Thank
over
you.
to us and she told us this big thing about what all happened to that money, that we're not going to get our center. And one more thing, and then I'm going to leave it to the next person, is it would be nice if y'all would come and see us. Spend some time with us at our center. Mayor Butch, you've come in for 10 minutes a couple of times. You know, hey, what's up? And you go around and talk to a couple people and you're gone. Socialize with us, or, you know what I'm saying? I don't know if y'all, we are part of the city. And I don't think that we are acknowledged, not only the seniors, but also the disabled people of the city. I do give kudos for, like I said, the transportation system here is fabulous. But like I said, I would like for y'all to come and see us at the senior center. Talk to us. Sit down at a table with us. Have lunch with us. I don't know how many other people see it, but like I said, once in a while you'll breeze by and you're gone. And I think that is just I don't want to say an insult, but it's just like we're an afterthought, that y'all spend like 2 minutes or 5 minutes with us. But like I said before, I'm really interested in trying to get these ramps. I have a lot of ideas, and as a person who experiences it myself, and like I said, got hit, I would offer my services and helping y'all along with that. Thank you all very much. Have a blessed evening now.
Thank you. Before we go any further, I meant to say this at the start of comments. From now we're going to enforce the rules of decorum. We're going to address the council as a body. Anytime someone starts to personalize their remarks, anytime you get boisterous and nasty with an individual council member, I'm going to call a recess. I'm going to say you're out of order. And then if you continue back with that, then we're going to terminate your time. But we're going to change the tone as it relates to this nastiness. All right? Please, continue on.
Yes, Aldine Sly, First District. Mayor, City Council, and staff, I sit every week and listen to certain comments being made about my representative on the dais. I marched with him. I'm one of the original people who marched with him for the sound insulation for our homes. And to hear people say that, it doesn't matter if people got fired, it doesn't matter what happened in the past, it does matter. It matters to us. And probably I'm going to be one of those left out without getting my home insulated with airplanes flying over that I can read the numbers on their wings. But it's important to know that Mike Stevens is the one who got us here. It's the city councils prior to you, Mayor Butts, who screwed it all up and left you with the bag. But if it wasn't for Mike, we wouldn't even be here. We would not be here. I don't care whether or not they insulate my home. I just don't care anymore, because the way I see the politics going back and forth, it's ridiculous. But I'm not going to let my city councilman be berated and have his comments thrown out, because he is the original person who used his own money, his own initiative, his talents to get us here. And if you want to call it a campaign speech, I don't even care about that. I know the quality of this man sitting in the 1st District seat. And I refuse to let those kind of comments go by without saying something about it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Roy Fisher, the 1st District. This dear lady that just asked that they had ramps. I will tell you that I've been talking about ramps for more than 20 years. I've run for the 1st District Council on more than one occasion and have talked to this council and this city about ramps for handicapped people, and especially in the 1st District where they do not have them, all over the district. That is part of the things that I have even addressed in the campaign that I have going. You know, I will say several things to you all this evening, and I said it before. One thing with regard to these meetings being held with people who are handicapped, and you need to have these meetings downstairs, because if you ever have an earthquake or some thing like you did where you had a fire alarm and people had to go down the elevator without the elevators, if anything happens, you guys need to be on the 1st floor with these people. So if you're going to have these meetings in the daytime or for people who are handicapped, you need to make reservations for them. More than that, you know, and Councilman Rawls, we talked about that too before, with regard to people getting tickets by attending these meetings in the daytime. There needs to be put in place a policy that anybody that gets a ticket because they're here, it needs to be voided. Going further, with regard to senior residents, the Osage residents, Mayor Butts, you know, you've been walking through these districts with people that you want to see elected. You know, you were in the Osage village and with Mr. Dotson. I had told you them some year ago or two when that building was broken into and they had a TV that was removed from that building, and there was a meeting about it. I was there and you were there. They put one of those old projection TVs out there, and seniors can't see those things. When that thing was stolen, those people that were insured should have put a TV back on that wall that was respectful to those seniors. They did not. You then went in there this past week and put a TV in there.
True, Mr.
Well, it was said to me that the TV was put in there with you and Mr. Butts there.
Over a month ago.
You may not, stop interrupting, please, Mayor.
Well, yeah, please.
You're out of
You know,
order.
no matter. What I'm saying is, you know, you then can't buy votes, you know. And those people who were insured should have put that TV in there for those seniors a year or two ago. So, you know, I will say at this dais anything that I want to say, because this country relates to free speech,
Okay,
no matter how you then try to make it.
Mr. Fisher, you're at time, sir. Is there any further public comment? Well, folks, we need to come forward so that we're not waiting till we're at the back of the room. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you, Ms. Austin.
Good evening, or good day, council, staff, and people in the audience. My comments are on the residential sound installation. And on these comments, I will excuse the Mayor Butts, and I will definitely excuse Mr. Stevens. But I will not excuse the three that are up here or Danny Tabor, and former Mayor Mr. Dorn, because the residential sound installation policies have been in effect with the old guard, not the new guard with the new mayor or Mr. Stevens. So the money has left. What did the old guard do with the money? Maybe the money got shifted to other departments. Maybe that's why we're in a structural deficit as of today. I'm a very smart, intelligent man. But, like I said, now because we have a new administration headed by a new mayor who has to go back and correct the old guard, this says a lot, because we should be ashamed from FAA. We can't handle our money. That's what it says. We cannot. And when we had control of the money, we didn't do anything. So as a result, we are where we are. And yes, we should be ashamed. Our heads should be in the sand, our legs, our tails tucked in between our legs, because it says something about minorities. Y'all can't handle anything. That's why our education system is the way it is. And parents are responsible for educating kids. And if the kids are not educated, it is because the parents do not care. Okay? I know it sounds very harsh and very mean-spirited, but we all have to look in the mirror and say, what is wrong with us? Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Sloan Blocker, and I have a question that's related to the budget turmoil in Washington, D.C., and how that affects the city of Inglewood. My question is, with the imposition of the sequester on March 1st, 2013, how can Inglewood residents track the magnitude of the automatic federal budget cuts to the city budget? Which agencies are impacted, and how will those reductions affect the services provided by those agencies? Is there a mechanism by which the council can...
comments. We don't answer right now, but I'll discuss that in my closing comments.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, and staff. I want to just spend my 3 minutes to just touch on my concerns about, how things are still being run. I just really get concerned when it looks like things aren't being run in a proper fashion, and we have to make judgment calls on the fly. We are living in a country where you see people getting into trouble all the time, and I don't want anybody to get into trouble. The city has enough issues. We don't need our leadership risking it all on a call. I wish we could be more efficient. I mean, my goodness. I mean, mighty folks are getting into trouble, people. I mean, we all heard the big one about CalPERS. The guy's probably going to go to prison. So I just hope that we can, just learn to just cross our T's sooner rather than later. With my last minute and 45 seconds, I've been coming to council meetings for a long time, folks, and we've seen them come and we've seen them go. My opinion, personal, a lot of them, most of them that went up, that have been sitting where you're sitting now, are there for political expediency, grandstanding, getting paid, getting promoted. I love you, Madam Treasurer. I love you to death, lady. But I can honestly say I actually had a conversation with someone about how the gentleman from District 1, representative from District 1, how, gosh, how many years ago did that battle start? Almost 20? And, you know, this is a man who, you can say whatever you want, think whatever you want about him as far as his performance on this dais, but we all have to admit to one thing. Everybody who lives in this town, your ears are a little bit better, and your lungs are a little bit cleaner, because and your quality of life is better because of what he and she's very modest, a lady named Sombrano back there in the peanut gallery did for this city. I asked the question out loud: have you guys ever got a plaque? We've seen people get plaques for some strange things, but I don't know that these folks ever got a plaque for basically getting all these huge awards in millions and millions and billions of dollars. I was just wondering. I'm praying for you folks. Have a good day.
My name is Diane Zambrano. And you know what's really sad? I heard so many of you say that you knew so much about LAWA. How many of you recognize the people that walked in today? Those are the people who went to SCAG, who went to COG, who are RSAC. These are the people responsible for the settlement agreement. That is some of the board of RSAC that worked together with Laxon. Those are the people who worked the streets, the SCAG, the COG, the MTA, and everyone else. I heard someone today say that they should get a copy of the settlement agreement. No, you don't need a copy of the settlement agreement. You should have had it for at least 7 years. Those of you making decisions about it should almost know it by heart. And instead you attack the individual who made sure, with Maxine Waters and others, Don Knabe, all those guys in private homes discussing air conditioning for sealed windows. And yet we have somebody who comes along, Johnny-come-lately, who wants to take credit for every doggone thing. Because throughout that whole letter, it says, I, me, and I. You know, it reminds me, there was a song a long time ago about it taking a whole group of people, and it was a whole group of people and no one man alone. But we have someone with us today who apparently thinks that he put the moon and the stars in the sky. And that's unfortunate, and that is sad, because there are at least 2 others who seem to believe that. One will come along and tell us that they, between the 3 of them, did a dynamite job of making this city all by their 3 little selves. And you know what? That just isn't true. And it's unfortunate that you have chosen to create a very negative atmosphere by the way you behave on that side of the dais, threatening to cut everybody off, threatening and being unkind. No, it wasn't the first time you saw police presence being criticized when we had 6 guys up here for 14 little old ladies on walkers up here. You heard about it. You heard about it in Santa Monica, and you heard about it at LAWA. It's on the internet, and anyone can look it up. No matter how much you pay for the search engine optimization, it's still out there. We just go looking, and there it is, in paper, in print, in libraries across America. Mr. H., it's your turn to tell us how wonderful the world is.
Good evening, council, staff, mayor. Mayor Butts, congratulations. You had a town hall meeting. Nice turnout. I heard it was, I wasn't there, but I heard it was standing room only, so congratulations. We all know what you want. You want a kangaroo court, a rubber stamp style City Hall, City Council. It's common knowledge you'd love to dump Councilwoman Dunlap as well as Stevens and get a 5-vote supermajority. And how bizarre, Mr. Mayor, that you're running a campaign on MSNBC with members you want on the council. That is your pal Alex Padilla and George Dotson. What's your motivation here? What attention are you trying to get? With the budget deficit, who's paying for this? Is it the city taxpayers? Just for the record, I have a degree from Cal State Northridge, taught in broadcasting. I taught school at Long Beach. I spent 20 years in the broadcast field. How relevant is that? I spent 19 of those 20 years at a broadcast news media operation. I was there during the Watergate scandal and affair. And one of the many things that President Nixon did was achieve power by any means necessary, as he thought that he was above the law. Sounds like it's a mirror image of you, Mr. Mayor. The result was Mr. Nixon had to resign in disgrace because of corruption, obstruction of justice, abuse of power, the infamous enemies list, but most of all, Nixon was shamed and embarrassed for the dirty tricks which you, Mr. Mayor, are guilty of. I know a movie rerun when I see one, and it looks like you're heading down the path of Watergate, but this time it'll be called Buttsgate. The record mentality might work if we had a rational mayor that didn't flip-flop after an election, and most of all, a mayor that has clean hands. Mr. Mayor, you do not have clean hands. If you get the 5 majority vote that you want, the Inglewood today will have a field day, as they will print whatever they want, and they'll be rolling in money due to the taxpayers. To everyone here, there are no checks and balances in Inglewood. If the mayor gets a supermajority that he wants, and it goes unchecked, it'll be like the fox guarding the hen house. Inglewood could be the next Bell, California, and we could be taken over by the state. 2 questions, Mr. Mayor. Why are there distractions over the names of candidates for city council on the voting ballots for April 2nd? There's no distraction over your pal Alex Padilla, but everybody else has got roses over it. Number 2, with the budget deficit with this city that it has, why is Mr. Artie Fields, the city administrator, not subject to the furlough that everybody else is? Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Beatty. Okay, we'll close public comment. Well, come on, please.
This senior citizen name is Miss Ethel Marie Austin. And I'm proud to be a citizen of the city of Inglewood. Under Judy Dunlap, my councilwoman, and Mike Stevens, one of my pro-council Tims. Anyway, I wanted to ask, I'm going to address this in a whole. As you said, Mr. Butts, everyone. I'm going to read this. Our treasurer, you boys every week reading the Wall Street Journal, telling us everything going on in Pine Bluff, Arkansas. Then why didn't you tell us that they were coming down, Inglewood Employee Credit Union was going bankrupt? So we paying all this money just for a TV session that we can watch. We have tons of warrants out here, millions of dollars. Says for management purposes. We have reimbursement warrants for our treasurer, 7,000. For what? Why isn't it broken down? Now, we running a campaign. Also, I want to say, on something one of your council members on the end right here said last week about quorum. Now, who started this backstabbing stuff? Who started it? Who started all of this yes manning and pointing fingers at Judy and Mike? I think we know, Mr. Butts, who did it. The wonderful city of Inglewood started all of this war. All of us would have been participants of being a very nice candidate in this election. But we had one of your special people to start this. Also, Mr. Butts, I want to remind you, in the last election, before you were elected, Wallace was here. Mayor Dawn had Wallace for years. And it's not nothing you throw away. They did nothing but tell the truth. And they did a fabulous job when they were here. But they were fine for telling the truth. Yes, they were. Before you came. Mayor Dawn did not. I want to tell the truth. It was before you. They were good. And I don't think it was fair. But they were fine because of that. So why can't we get it back? You know? And one other thing, I want you to remember something else. When Judy loaned you her campaign office, remember that? And she endorsed you and all of us voted for you. We really didn't want neither one of you all. But due to Judy, we went on with you. I wouldn't even help you. You gave everybody a job with me. I wonder why. And you know you love me. Why didn't you give me that?
Thank you, Ms.
Why didn't
Austin.
you give me 10 little minutes? Come
Ms.
on
Austin,
now.
thank you very much.
We got to find Ms. Austin a job. Good evening, Council. My name is Lynette Lewis. I guess I want to just kind of address and sit back there for a little bit. Back and forth on this sound installation. You know, and we've been doing this since 2006. And I tell you, we've gone through so many contracts, so many contractors, so many this and doing this and that and the other. There was no oversight or nothing over this program. I really tend to think, and I've read some of the information in regards to this thing with Mr. Butts and what have you, and what he has done with this contract in Iowa. But it kind of worries me a little bit because it seems that there should be a kind of conflict of interest with you being able to negotiate with some of your old bosses. That to me, it just seems like that kind of worries me. The other thing is this, is that we're negotiating and we got a company that we don't even know the name of it. We don't even know what CSDA means. And we just really kind of negotiating. And when I think about it more, and I want to know, when we talk about all this money coming down, all this stuff is going to be brought into the city of Inglewood, I kind of ask myself at what cost? You know, nothing comes in anywhere unless that there is something to be given up. And I like to know what's that going to cost us for that coming in here. So that is one of my concerns. The other thing I'd like to kind of address right quickly is everybody who talked about the seniors that was here the other day. You know, we have a group of seniors, homeowners, that several of them came down on the other week, and they were charged in that structure down there. Some of them was like over $5, some was almost $7. When you're taking this thing to daytime, have you talked about the homeowners, seniors that pay their taxes here when they want to come down and address this council? And there is nothing that's set aside for them when we can send buses all across the city to pick up other seniors. Do we have anything here for them? Is there some kind of discount if they should happen to want to come down here and park in that structure down there? That is one of the things, because I'm telling you, to pay out $5 and $6 to come down and sit down here, that's a lot coming out of a senior's money. So if there is something that can be done in terms of comping them for coming down, there should be, as well as a bus or something.
I'll be addressing that at the end.
Oh, you will be addressing that. That's good. And in addition to that, the handicapped seniors that come down, it seems to me that there should be a mic or something that is being able to pass through them so they don't have to try to get up and come to this podium to speak. At least give them a chance to speak. Because when they come down, if they got to try to find their walkers or what have you, a lot of them don't want to get up. So would you think about that in terms of them having a mic, portable mic Thank
Ms.
you.
Lewis.
My name is Willie A.G., and I live in the beautiful city of Inglewood. For 18 years, I've been sitting in this chair here. Out of all of the campaign that's been going on, Ms. Dice, Ms. Dunlap, and Mr. Stephen, I have never known Mr. Stephen to do but one thing: pretend that he lived in District 4. Ms. Lorraine Johnson took him to court.
Mr. A.G., address the, well, no, excuse me, address the whole council, just address the whole council.
Took him to court, and he lost because he lied. He said he lived in the 4th district, and he did not. He did not. He does not live in the 4th district.
Hold on, excuse me. Stop Mr. A.G.'s time. Hold, excuse me. Mr. Beatty sat here and accused me of being Nixon, of going to jail. I let him say whatever he chose to. I didn't hear you then. So come on, don't be so obvious. Excuse me, don't be so obvious.
But he did.
Go ahead, Mr. A.G. Would you put his time back? No, I sat here and listened to what he had to say, but it's not me, so no, you don't want to hear it. So you guys, don't be so obvious. Go ahead, Mr. A.G.
I hope the campaigning is over.
Okay, Miss Austin. Miss Austin.
Mayor?
I'd like to see her bond,
Give him another minute.
barred from this council.
She should be.
She deserved to be barred from this council. I never.
Yeah, no, we will take action. Go ahead.
I am so glad that this campaign is over. And I want to congratulate the 3 people that's working for this city. The mayor of this city, I support you 200%. Eloy Morales, I support you. Ralph Franklin, if it wasn't for you 3 people, I don't know what would happen to this city, really. Absolutely. And I just hope that you keep up the good work. And the people in District 1 and District 2 will have an opportunity on the 2nd of April to keep these people up here or get rid of them. I hope you get rid of them, because I'm tired of coming here, sitting here 4 or 5 hours every night and listening to all of this rhetoric. It's up to the people. If you want to keep them up there, then keep them. Absolutely.
I guess we're turning this out. Yeah, well, Bill, Willie's not supposed to be campaigning from this podium to start with, the way I heard things. Okay, I'm glad you guys passed this DR1. That's going to be real important in my life. That should have had. See, I've never been trying to figure out how the city of Inglewood's the only city that didn't have that program to start with anyway. You know, all these other cities, Culver City, Hawthorne, El Segundo, all of them, Lawndale, they all got it. And then the counties got it. That's a federal program, and how it ever got away from being run by the city is beyond me. You know, it sounds like someone got a payoff at some time or another. Now, I'm not pointing any fingers or anything, but it just doesn't seem fair that people have had to go as long as they've gone. My parents dealt with that. My dad died 25 years before my mom, and her house was okay. Got ready to do this sound insulation, and then there was too much junk in it, and had to get rid of that and all that. And then after I do that, and I go through the probate court and everything, the roof's bad, and the whole inside of the house is falling in. And because we didn't have a program that someone could go to take care of those problems, you know. And this is a compliment. You guys all did it. You got together, you put your heads together and got something positive. Now, I know election time's coming up, and to hell with that as far as I'm concerned. You need to be working on making things better for the people of the city of Inglewood. We have no control for, no protection for renters. You know, that needs to be addressed in the future. And there's a lot of other things to make the city more resident and business friendly, because we're lacking in a lot of those areas. And these daytime meetings are weird. Thank you.
Okay, we have to take a 5-minute break while they change the DVD. We'll be back at 5:05. Call the meeting back to order. Madam City Clerk, could you call the roll? Could we come to order? We're going to complete public comment. Is any further public comment? All right, we'll go to council comment. Councilman Stevens. Well, Wonder Brown, Treasurer's report.
Thank you very much, Mayor. The Treasury report as of October 31st, 2012, the investments for the city is $86,750,944. And there's other on the table in case some of you did not get one. There's other on the table. And for the successor agency, there's $104,754,257. Housing Authority, $100,226. Public Finance Authority, $13,486,555. And the total funds under management is $205,091,982. And the gross investment interest earnings for the city was $112,518. Successor agents, $6,856. Housing Authority, $89. And again, the total funds under management, $205,091,982. And also, I would like to point out the bills that was paid for the month of February, $9.2 million. Net payroll, $2.4, and the total for the month, $11.5 million. Thus far for March, it's been $1 million total bills, and the total for the month, again, has been $1 million payroll. And I would like to mention, with regards to the bank failures, there have been 4 bank failures for the 2013. All told, have been 474 bank failures since 2007, and the total assets of these failed banks have been $694.6 billion. And the loss to the FDIC has been $95.6 billion. And again, there's $11 billion still outstanding, primarily owed by the smaller banks. And I would like to point out, I did make some trades, and 2 of them settled today for $2 million. And it was a federal home loan bond, and the interest rate that was, the coupon on that particular bond was 1.15. And again, it's a 5-year non-call for 6 months, meaning that I will get at least 6 months call protection before that bond can be called away from me. Should interest rates go up, it won't be called at all. Should it go down, what I expect it to go down, then that bond will be called away from me. And also, I bought another $1 million. It was a federal farm credit. It has 1.03. It's a 5-year non-call also for 1 full year. and these are two AA rated. And also bought a federal home loan bond at a discount at 1.15. So it was also a very excellent bond that was bought in it, and it had a coupon of 1.07. And I would like to point out also, I attended an excellent conference. This is why I wasn't here last week. It's an annual GIOA conference that was held in Las Vegas. It's always held there. It's where the company is based. And there were some excellent presentations, and I was particularly wanted to sit on the session that had to do with GSEs. These are the government-sponsored enterprises, which is primarily what I buy on behalf of the city and the successor agency. And Fannie and Freddie is among those. And as you know, Fannie and Freddie, as I mentioned before, really has roughly about somewhere between 60 to 70% of the mortgage market that it backs. So basically, I know they're going nowhere, so the government will be dealing with them in times coming. But there was no particular update other than they're still in conservatorship, but basically they will be taken care of by the government, because they have gotten, of course, entirely too big to allow them to fail, because they back such a huge amount of the mortgage market. And lastly, I would just like to just make a couple of comments regarding something that was made by one of the community people that walked up to the podium regarding the credit union. I am the treasurer of the city. I am the treasurer for the city of Inglewood. I have absolutely nothing to do with the credit union. The credit union is a separate entity run by a private entity.
Mayor,
so the treasurer has absolutely nothing to do with the treasurer. The treasurer manages the surplus funds of the city only. She has nothing to do with other departments or other entities that's operating within the city. I just want to clarify that. It was entirely untrue. And also would like to mention that person mentioned that I had over a $7,000 phone bill. Entirely not true. The phone reimbursement was a little over $700. And it was an accumulation of bills that I had not been reimbursed for. I'm entitled to being reimbursed for the single cell phone that the city do provide for me. It was not $7,000, it was a little over $700. I think about $716, but it was reimbursement. That concludes my remarks. And Mayor, thank you so much for allowing me to give the report at a late date.
You're welcome. Councilman Stevens, council comments.
Yes, I would just like to say to the community, thank you so much for your support. Renard, you had mentioned that a plaque or something. That's not necessary. Back about 10 years ago, well, it's not necessary. The people who were out there who really made that, really galvanized the charge for fighting against the navigation easement. At one time, there was a document that gave LAX permission to fly in, over, and through, as Maria Bellows used to say, through my house. She was Hungarian, and she found that quite appalling, as all of us did here in the city of Inglewood. But I want to say this to you: I cannot thank you enough for the kind words that were said here today. And this memento was given to me 10 years ago, and I brought it to my office. One of the first things I brought. And I display it, and I do not use it, but I do value it greatly. And thank you, Ms. Sly, because you were the one that presented it to me on behalf of others. I just want to say to everyone, it is campaign season, and I want you can learn a lot by history. I remember back in 95, 96. I remember walking on 102nd Street, 101st Street, and there was Tommy, there was Johnny Williams, and Billy, and Tommy, and as I mentioned him, and also Wallace Russell, many of whom have died. Many of they received their soundproof windows, but they only received them for a short period of time before their death. Two of them died of cancer, and a host of others. But there were other people who galvanized that movement. But I'm one of the originally founding members of RSAC. Val Velasco went on to become an airport board of commissioners. She sits there today. And I say that to say this. Many of the people, and I have no problem with anyone saying anything at this podium, but at that time there was a little old man that sat in that middle chair there, and then he moved down to this end named Mayor Dorr. And I want to tell you, he put us through our paces. And so much so, to the people in Inglewood, their minds were closed. You could show the resident of Inglewood that you are entitled to soundproof windows, and they refused to believe it. And that went on for almost a year, I remember, walking the streets, knocking on doors. And not until I co-founded a group called RSAC, and people in Inglewood saw white people in Westchester standing behind this black guy demanding their soundproof windows, did the people in Inglewood then say, well, maybe there is something to this. And then suddenly people became aware of abrogation easements, and people became informed. I just ask you to do this. People come to that podium and they say many things, but they are in fact shields. Many of them are. But remember this. At no time have I ever betrayed your trust, and I will continue to stand for you and with you, and I will not accept sound insulation until every homeowner receives theirs. And that's what I was trying to get through at the meeting last week, was that years ago I said, I will not accept soundproof windows until everyone else receives theirs. So with that, with no time left, I thank you, Mr. Mayor, for that additional time, and I thank all of you, Westchester, Inglewood residents, El Segundo residents, for supporting me through the years, and I just thank all of you, and thank you so much for your support. Thank you.
Councilwoman Dunlap.
Yes, thank you. Actually, there was a member of the public, Mr. Walker, spoke about the sequestering and how that might affect money coming to us. That's a very important question. And I would ask that city administration, Mr. Falco, if you'd pass it on to Mr. Artie Fields, we need to have a report given to this body sometime probably within the next 30 days with regard to the potential impact upon the city regarding any of those sources of federal funds reduction that might come, because the public has a right to know as well as members of this body. With regard to anyone parking, paying for parking to attend a council meeting in the daytime, that's ridiculous. The parking should be free. We should be encouraging people. So once again, Mr. Falco, work out a program, work out something where people attend the meetings, get something to take in there. They should not be paying. That's ridiculous. Access to government, not only should the meetings be free, as they are, but they shouldn't have to pay to park because it makes it cost prohibitive. I'm also greatly concerned that now that we have seniors coming in here in walkers and wheelchairs, that we are not ADA compliant upstairs. We are not ADA compliant. I mean, it's illegal for us to be having these meetings here in these rooms with people in wheelchairs. So that needs to be looked into, because there's a very serious liability issue here, Mr. Falco. So I think administrative staff needs to discuss that and how it can be remedied so that we fulfill the needs of the people who attend these meetings as well as complying with the law. I want to say that with regard to the settlement agreement, it's very interesting. It was about a month or so ago that we were discussing an agenda item on money for improvement of Century Boulevard. And until Councilman Stevens brought up the fact, well, wait a minute, why are we using these funds to rehab the street, Century Boulevard, when that money can be used in our neighborhoods, our community throughout the city, when we have $10 million in the settlement agreement earmarked just for Century? City manager sat right over there and said he didn't know what he was talking about. It was news to him. Well, he's been here for a year and a half, going on 2 years. There's no reason the mayor's been here for over 2 years. There's no reason for them not to be aware of this money coming to us required by law, absolutely required by law. And that frees up money for our neighborhoods if we're in desperate need of street repair in our neighborhoods. So that's very, very critical. And with regard to discussion of the RSI, the expense of the employees, I appreciated the mayor's compliments to me this evening regarding the fact that we use civil service employees when we should have used contract people. 20 years ago when we set up that program, I had an initiative that all of the sound installation program, because it was a finite program, we needed to use contract people to come in here, bring experienced people from other cities who've done this work. They could have actually been paid more money in salary but cost us less money in the long run because they would not be receiving retirement from us. So I thank the mayor for his compliments to me with my long-range vision as to what would have made that program really work. Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome. Councilman Rouse.
I don't have many comments, but I did want to address, I did speak to Mr. Fisher, as he said, regarding the parking during the council meetings. You know, I don't know if they actually receive tickets going into the structure, but there should be something, instead of using all our stamps up here, we should be able to just accommodate the parking during those hours. Can you tell me if that's something that you guys have thought through? He can use my time there.
Yes, Councilman. One of the things that we can do, we currently manage the parking structures, and so one of the things that we could do is set up a mechanism for validation. We would need it to be something that was given here as opposed to just given anywhere, because obviously we would want to provide the benefit to the attendees to the meeting. People could come at any point in time and to leave, so it's something that we could certainly conceivably come up with, and I can certainly talk to staff and come up with a solution for that.
Can we come up with it within the next 2 weeks? I believe that'll be our next daytime meeting.
Yes, sir, we could.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
That's it for me, man. Thank you.
Well, with that sound, I'm supposed to go out to sea, so no comments. No comments.
First of all, Mr. Falco, there's no need to do a report on sequestration. To answer you directly, we'd be impacted whenever automatic cuts are made to any social programs out of HUD, CDBG, any pass-throughs from the state to the city, any federal programs where we receive direct grant funding, any social programs that become automatic cuts, any meals programs, like we have meals for seniors that we get federal funds for, any of those would be impacted by sequestration. But we won't know the amount and degree until the cuts take effect, so there's no need to do a report on that.
Thank you, sir.
I also agree we need to work out something for seniors as it relates to parking. And I want to make a comment about, again, about the way people deport themselves. I sat here and let Mr. Beatty accuse me of unknown and unspecified crimes, and I sat here and took it, and everyone out here was good with it. But then when Mr. Agee talked about something that everyone knows is true, then it was all of a sudden it was outrageous. We have people that come up every week and talk about one case in 37 years in law enforcement that I was sued for just for being the chief of police, and I sit there and I take it. But you see, if it's your guy, then all of a sudden it's an uproar. This has got to stop. And as far as that racial slur that was used today, that's not going to be permitted. And so all the petting up and whatnot, it's not going to matter. When people curse, use racial slurs, they're going to be ejected. We got to stop this double standard. It's okay if it's this other guy, but my guy don't say anything. You're not going to control other people's speech because it isn't your guy. I take it, we all got to take it, as long as it's done civilly and factually. And I want to adjourn the meeting. One more thing about Century Boulevard. I definitely knew that there was $10 million that could be negotiated in the agreement, but we were not eligible for it because we weren't eligible for any more grants, because we weren't in compliance with our noise grants. So there was no sense in talking about it because they weren't going to negotiate it. It's back on the table now. And I want to adjourn the meeting in the name of David Robinson. Thank you. Thank you, buddy.
What happened to David?